Right, this is going to be another episode of Snake and Banter. And you know what? People often say a really cruel, horrible insult, especially to Maui, but sometimes to me. They forget with me because I actually don't even do events anymore. They always say to Maui, like, haha, get a job, you're unemployed. Well, technically, you could say that to our guest this week, because Mnmzzz actually technically, sadly, just lost his job recently. Here's the thing, though. He is still, if you saw the fine details, he is working till the end of the year, and they did say something like they'd give you your salary till the end of the year, right? But beyond that, you are looking for work. So if someone wants to hire you, what roles do you want to do? Like news editor or something? What would your ideal job be?
So yeah, gainfully unemployed right now, like you said, on the way out. I'd like to be, I can do a lot of things. I've done editing for Blix, I've done news writing, I've done copy, I've done SEO stuff, unfortunately.
Okay.
Worked in the SEO mines a little bit. I've done basically every role in esports journalism over the last 6.5 years. So looking for work, pay me please. That'd be great.
Sure.
That's all I have to say on that front. Yeah, you did notice though, you did catch the key detail there where it said like, I'll keep working till the end of the year, because people have sent me a message. They're like, so what happens to Dust 2 US now? And I'm like, well, nothing actually. It just keeps working. They're like, but the site's closed. I'm like, where'd you get that impression? And they're like, well, you've lost your job. And I'm like, well, I lose my job at the end of the year. And they're like, how does that work? And I'm just like, read the post.
Oh, by the way, one other detail. If someone is listening who potentially could hire Mnmzzz, he also does have an actual visa for the Chinese majors. So he could also potentially go and do work there for you at the major, right?
I do. Better Collective very kindly did all this work to get me a Chinese visa, and then 8 days before I was supposed to leave, they're like, "Yeah, we're not going to China anymore. Sorry."
At least they got you the visa, though. That's just
at least I get to keep the visa, right? Yeah, it lasts until 2033, and it's 90 days multi-entry, so I can go to China. I can spend an entire year in China if I just keep leaving and coming back. So I do have a feeling next year there's going to be a ton more events out there in China.
Totally
I
plausible,
think that's going to be. It's totally
by the way,
plausible.
I'll even give you another angle. People maybe know that obviously PGL, who by the way is producing this major, obviously has worked with Perfect World. But I can tell you, obviously famously another brand coming back is StarLadder, and they used to be super tight with all those Chinese companies. They obviously had like the StarLadder I series or whatever it was called, where it was like I League, I think it was one that they were like partnered with for their finals. That's why Ty Lue and Veach used to be at every event, if people remember. So yeah, there should be plenty of events out there. And how long did you say it lasts? 90 days?
90 days, but every time I leave, I get 90 more days.
Oh, it's just an actual like a span of time. It's not a set 90 days. It's usually get to have 90 days within the country, right? I see. And it's multi-entry, as you say.
I can come back.
Yeah, so what he's essentially saying there is that the major itself is going to be, like a month, but you could probably go and do 2 more events, potentially, if someone hires you within that span, right?
Oh, yeah, and I wouldn't even have to leave China. Like, that was the plan originally for us, was it's so expensive to leave China. They were just going to dump me off for the Asia-Pacific RMR. We were going to stay there through to the end of the major because you save, $4,000 or whatever flying back and forth across the Pacific Ocean. But ultimately, that didn't, come to pass, unfortunately.
Anyway, that's a bit of a doomer. That's a bit of a downer. Let's get into some CS and some frivolous video games that we've all potentially stupidly hitched our whole lives and destinies and happiness and emotions to. So Mnmzzz, what is the first good point we're starting with here?
So my good point to lead off with here is kind of tied into what we said in the intro is with Mongols reaching number 5 on the Valve rankings, with us having a major coming up in China, and I think a relatively successful event out in Singapore, I think we could potentially parlay this into a fantastic 2025 for Chinese and Asian CS. I think we had the potential to sort of bring it back, especially with the fortunes of Valorant going down worldwide. I'm very bullish about the future of Asian esports in general.
Okay.
Okay.
It's an interesting angle. Go, you keep if you got more, keep going, yeah.
I feel the traditional thought process with Chinese and Asian CS at large is, it's going up in 2019, going up until Valorant comes out and it completely drops off a cliff. We see the entire Indian scene decamp to Valorant. We see the entire Thai scene decamp to Valorant. All the Indonesian, Singaporean players all head over there. The only players who really stayed was the Ty Lue players, the Vici Gaming players, and a handful of Mongolian players. But and Maui, you were out in Singapore, if I'm not mistaken. So I think for a LAN at a country that's never had really a tier 1 CS LAN since probably CS 1.6, what did you think of the crowd out there? Was the crowd receptive to the CS tournament? Do you think there was a level of grassroots excitement for the game, even though there were no Singaporean players out there?
Oh yeah, I mean the crowd at the Blast World Finals was legitimately fantastic. I was pretty blown away. For the World Finals last year, for example, we did Abu Dhabi, and that kind of just felt like a location that Blast was doing because they could probably get some sort of sponsorship for going there. I felt like there was some sort of, you get some sort of kickback by doing an event there. But for Singapore, I feel like Blast, well, they got Singapore Airlines as a sponsor and the local hotel, so that was good. That probably benefited them. But on top of that, I mean, like the crowd, I mean, didn't it sound pretty good through the microphones?
Sounded
I actually
awesome,
really
man.
did.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
sounded great. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was an arena. Well, I guess arena is kind of a, maybe using the term a little bit too liberally. Essentially, it was like a 3.5K capacity auditorium that was sold out, and you could feel that it was really booming in there.
I will say
And
sometimes theaters can have way less like capacity because they're designed for the sound. It'll sound like dope with like 5K people or something. You're right, yeah.
and the thing is that actually what they told us is that the room that was in is actually one direction, like it stretched back longer than actually the Royal Arena in Copenhagen. So
Okay.
people are like, oh, people. I read one tweet that was, or like not a tweet, like a
Reddit comment
Reddit,
or something,
like
yeah.
yeah, some kind of online comment. I forgot where, honestly.
Sorry for your
But
loss. Yeah.
yeah, at this point, true. That was just saying like, oh, this looks like it's just a small room or something like that or whatever. It's like, no, that was a lot of people, and I will say on top of that, the most respectful crowd I have ever been around. Period. Obviously I want to be biased and say like, oh, I am Dallas had the best crowd I've ever had, and I do. I
In
do
what
like the
sense?
American crowd.
As in, you think even the team they didn't like they
Okay.
cheered for? So what do you mean by that?
Yeah, they just cheered for Counter-Strike. They were
Oh,
just
right,
cheering for
right.
good CS.
Right.
They were even hearing if we were making jokes, and sometimes you'd get chuckles out of them here and there. And on top of that, like they would cheer for the good moments, not necessarily. Well, they would cheer for everything. Like they would cheer for a lot of good stuff, and even, of course, they're gonna cheer for like an eco ace. For whatever reason, there were like 3 eco aces in the playoffs. So
Okay.
it's like, yes, they for the ace part of it, they are gonna cheer for the last kill, which is great. But when I say respect, I legitimately mean when Henry and I would get off the casting booth, they would be in a straight single file line to greet us in the area where we have to move through. And if we want to say no, we could have easily walked away and said no, because they were just lining up with their own good faith that they thought we would do signatures and photos, which we did because they were in such an orderly line where we got off. And normally at a lot of places, people just kind of crowd you sort of aimlessly. They just kind of, it's just an amorphous blob of people who are all kind of like, it almost feels like you're moving through an obstacle course of people. Like you have to move through these traffic cones, like doing a dribbling drill or something. But this time it was just a straight up line, and they would just ask one by one politely for signatures or a photo. And then oftentimes they asked like one, they always said like a nice thing, and they were actually fans of CS. Like people approached me in Singapore that said, I'm a big fan of Snake and Banter. They said, I'm a big fan of Hot Take Point Made. I'm a big fan of your stream. I'm a big fan of your own YouTube content. The casting you did was really good. Are you going to ever cast more? I'm a big fan of you on the desk. I'm glad you got
Then
it."
you were like, all
They
right,
were
Mom,
tapped
you didn't
in.
need to come all the way here to tell me that. Fucking
They
hell.
were-
I know this running. And
No,
also,
they were tapped
you know
in.
what? You're actually taller than I thought in real life, and you're good looking as well. Bloody hell, man. Give me a break, okay?
No, it was like every single possible compliment under the
Right.
sun is what I'm talking about. Like as opposed to sometimes you go places and unfortunately their grasp of English, or maybe they're not big enough
Right.
fans in the space. They're like, "Can I just get a signature? Can I get a photo?"
Sure.
But they were actually saying varied
Oh no, put it
compliments.
this way. I will say I know what you
Yeah.
sort of mean. Like, put it this way. You know when you go to an event and someone, like, if for example, if you do a signing session and someone asks you for a signature, but you don't know, do they even know who you are? Maybe they just know who Anders is or something.
Yeah.
Or- It's not like that, because I know what you mean by that. In a lot of events, you get the feeling sometimes people ask for the picture or the signature just because you're there. They might not even really be a
Yeah.
fan of yours. But you actually felt like they were authentic.
Yes, they were authentic.
Right.
They were absolutely authentic fans, and they even booed Valorant a couple times. Like that's
Okay.
that's how hardcore
Okay.
they were.
That's good.
Okay. By the way,
Ideological.
it is okay to like both games. I don't know why that's like a thing. Like, oh, and they even like, showed the right faith. Yeah, they booed the reticle game. Okay, Maui, all right. I didn't know you were on that shit. Fair enough.
They cheered for the duck. They cheered for the duck. They booed the rabbit. Yeah, even though flip it upside down, exact same thing. And that is. I think there are classic stories of that where it's like a fan will come to a signing session and they'll be like, "Oh man, Machine, I'm such a huge fan of you," and it's like come up to you and you're like, "I love you, Machine." You're like, all right, yeah, there you go. but it seems like they were like really engaged in the shirts. Some of the shirts they had on Twitter and Reddit that people were posting of like older CS memes written on them, a lot of like good content that showed. I think it's a very engaged like esports crowd out there in Singapore. And to that point, it's less organized, but I feel like every event we've had in China recently, like the fans are ravenously interested in CS. Like they're crowding the team buses. I think at the start of the year at Chengdu, they're waiting outside of the hotels. The security's having to keep basically everyone out of the hotels because they're so engaged in the game. And even if their teams aren't successful, I think out there you have pretty authentic fans, which I would like to counter with recent events out in IM Rio. We see out there like that crowd is very partisan. It's very interested in Brazilian teams. It doesn't have a whole lot of interest for just the game itself. They're there for the Brazilian team. And then, like you said, out in Dubai, we don't really get a crowd because the event is out there purely for sponsor reasons. And especially we're going to probably see more events out in Riyadh, and the crowd there is small. It's not engaged. It's mainly just people there from the families of the teams, the groupies of the teams, a very small contingent of actual fans, which if I'm hoping next year we're going to see more events, I would love to see more events out in I would love to see another event out in Ulaanbaatar, the Mongolian capital. Even though it's such a small country, when we've had RMRs or we've had Mongolian events out there, we've also seen just insane crowds. And if we have a team like Mongols that is peaking right ahead of the major, I think there's a world in which Mongols could make a top 16 finish at this major based on what we've seen of them coming right out of just winning Thunder Pick. So if we can have a team that the Asian fans can like rally behind and get excited for, then I think the sky's really a limit for what we can get in terms of fan engagement last year. Especially I would say the only thing that kind of crushes it is the fact that friend of the show, I presume, Kassad, the Bleed organization, which was like the only tier 1 non-Chinese organization out there, completely shit the bed and fell apart. So that would be one thing I would say is a downside, but they were, they had a European squad as well. So it wasn't like they were really targeting an Asian market. And we've even recently seen so this is like kind of a very like nerdy point, but I was a big fan of the Thai scene before Valorant came out because they had a very well structured scene, almost like the German scene where you have you have 99 damage, like Div 3, Div 2, Div 1, then you go to the ESL Meisterschaft. They had essentially that program out there in Thailand where they had multiple different divisions of teams, and we had a couple of teams there that were close to making the major in the final year of the Asia Minor before Valorant and before COVID. And unfortunately, all those players decamped back to Valorant when that game came out. But recently, you've seen more and more players coming back, like Team NKT. That was a team that had like Xcurit, Bentet, Impression, Gratisfaction on it. They now host a fully Thai team again. It's not really successful, but the fact that there are, pros willing to come back to CS is just like another sign that there is returning interest all across Asia for Counter-Strike. And that's the big thing I think we're missing in CS2 compared to especially like 1.6, where we had, a successful Korean team that could challenge for, world championships in their time. And compared, just having come out of League of Legends World, it's like seeing, a super successful Asian team that dominates the entire scene. Like that's something we're missing. I think that really can like make CS a global esport again.
No, I will say, I mean, there's obviously a lot there. First of all, on the whole thing of like, the idea you could like expand into Asia. The saddest thing people probably don't realize is what you just said. The dirty secret about Asian Counter-Strike is not the notion that they just don't like Counter-Strike or FPS games. That's just not true. Like if people don't know, games like Crossfire, which is basically the Korean clone of Counter-Strike. And actually, I always say this, at the end of CS 1.6, they had a version in China called CS Online that was just 1.6 modded to be free to play and have its own skin market, believe it or not. I had like a weird skin market. And those games, I can tell you, were making like insane revenue. If you ever looked online, they were making a lot of money from things like skins and people buying things, because that's the other reason why it's so bizarre that they haven't been able to nail the publishing for these games. Actually, Valorant is the closest they've come, is because actually also Asia is a region that loves to buy like cosmetics and silly things, and even things, by the way, that are just pure cosmetics and have zero like play to win component, just things for your team, or like obviously cutesy anime type shit and all fucking thing. So what's weird is I actually think this has always been the untapped market in esports, is Counter-Strike, or back in the day Quake and stuff in Asia. Like as you say as well, if you ever go to events, the people who go to the events, because there obviously aren't a lot of big CS events there, you get people where they aren't just like a guy from that city. They'll tell you shit like, I just got on like a 7-hour train because I'm like a CS guy and there's only ever like, I don't know, League of Legends tournaments in my country. And so like, I had to come to this one CS event and I came like 7 hours on a train, or I traveled 2 days or something mental. So I actually do feel like it is quite a receptive region to having tournaments. The key thing for me, I always mention, I'll mention it for the millionth time, is Valve just has to do a better job understanding how you publish games in Asia. Their problem is they really are like some old school game dev / publisher where they just figure like, yeah, just get Steam and get the game, like as all everyone in the world buys games the same way. Whereas I always say in Korea, by the way, like in China you have to have it in the PC cafe. In Korea you need it in the PC cafe, and you have to do like a marketing campaign, because Korea, especially, it's obviously a smaller country than China. Korea is all about getting it to be like a social phenomenon basically. If that happens, it can get massive. People want to know the obvious example. Obviously Overwatch could never have been the biggest game of the year, but it is one of the only games that very briefly was able to dislodge League of Legends in the PC cafes. And that's because, first of all, it's a Blizzard game, and obviously Koreans love StarCraft and Blizzard games. But I believe also they did do a really heavy marketing push when it came out the first year. And I think they even did something similar to League, where if people don't know, in League of Legends, if you go to the PC cafe, you get all the champions. You don't have to buy them with Riot points. You just unlock them all. So it automatically encourages the PC cafe to have the game and then people to play from the PC cafe. So I think they did something similar in Overwatch. I think when it launched, you maybe got like, I can't remember what it was you got extra, but you got maybe like a cosmetic or something if you played in the cafe. So these are like simple concepts, but crucially, this is the downside. The reason that probably won't happen, unfortunately, is a bit like why we have all these problems in European Counter-Strike, which is you sort of need people in Valve who liaise with like the community, and as far as I can tell, they don't really have that in Asia. With that said though, I do agree. I actually think the market is right there. I think if anyone was able to tap into it, part of it would be by doing events, etc. I think there's probably millions of people that you could add to the broadcast. And also, on the last point, what you just said about League, that is always the bomber. Even though I am a CS and a Quake person and very much like an FPS gamer, I always tell people, right, what's funny now is, you notice most people forget the games now and they go, of course Faker's the greatest player ever in esports. Bro, I used to have a really hard time convincing anyone that was even plausible in his first few years, because everyone's whole shit was, but he plays League of Legends. Like, who gives a fuck about League of Legends if you're a Counter-Strike or a Quake or a StarCraft player? But I always tell people, here's the biggest upside to League of Legends and a player like Faker. He doesn't ever have to wonder, and what if this region had played the game? Would I have been the best? Every major region plays League of Legends, if you don't know. Like, everyone. Like, as you saw there, like, Korea's amazing, China's insane, Europe has a whole... Even North America, when they say it's falling off, they still have millions and millions of dollars going into those teams, etc. The real problem in a game like Counter-Strike, and I've had to say this to my friends who are European, is even people like Get Right, I was like, here's the problem, Get Right. You might not know this, but there probably was some guy who was better than you at Counter-Strike. He just never played it, bro. He was Korean and he played StarCraft, or he played League of Legends, or he was Chinese and he played Dota 2. Like, what we actually will never know in CS is where are all the best players? Because as a last point, if anyone follows Valorant, in the first couple of years, it was not too dissimilar to CS. The best Korean team could like vaguely compete. They could make like a top 6 run or something. The best like Chinese team, they could do like an upset in the group. If people don't know this, last year, the best team was a Korean team. They were the best team in the whole world. Like, and the Paper X team's mega. So there have been not just good, like exceptionally good, on the level that Mnmzzz of 1.6, where we actually used to have like the We Made Fox team could have like won a major. They were in like finals and shit. They were fucking around and going really deep into it. So I do think it's one of these areas where people dismiss it because they think to themselves, oh, they just don't like FPS. They do, but you have to sort of, like every region and every market, you have to cater to that market. You have to know who they are and what they like and how to get them on board and how to get people to try the game first and then get hooked on the game and all that. Because if you do all that, like as we see here, the events are ready. We're already ready to go there. And I always tell people, if it's actually, I'll bring it back to the Singapore angle, because I was actually going to do this as my good point, but I can switch it up. I can do that on the fly. The thing I actually think was excellent about the Singapore event is, I'm not exaggerating, that looked like an event. Look, I obviously wouldn't fly to Singapore to watch a CS event. I'm a bit older in my career for that, and I'm a bit jaded to go as a fan to watch CS. But like that, unironically, if I lived in that region, looks like an event I would want to attend. As you guys are saying, one, the setup looked really good. I've always said on this show, by the way, I much prefer sell the crowd out and have a smaller venue rather than have a really big venue and maybe you have more fans but just make it look empty. I hate the empty look. The empty look is such a fucking bomber when the shot pans. I'd rather have a 3K place, if that's what you're saying it is, but filled to the rafters and looking like it's a bouncing venue, you know. That looks sick. And then also, I definitely agree on the like neutral crowd aspect. The reason I've always said the best crowd in Counter-Strike history is the Cologne crowd is because it's not even just a German thing. They do just cheer for everyone. And maybe it's also because it's in Central Europe and everyone goes there. It's a very easy place to get to. It's clean. It's a modern country and all that jazz, you know. But and the stadium's excellent. It's a proper arena. I had similar vibes on a smaller scale from this event. Like as you're saying, especially with the contrast of Rio, which might be the most biased crowd ever. This did look like, I'm not joking, I couldn't totally have been able to tell if I didn't watch many games. If I watched 3 games randomly, I guarantee I wouldn't necessarily know which teams they liked the best out of this event. Like, I agree with you. They were both into it and respectful. What I mean by that is they clearly were getting into teams that they aren't the biggest fan of. But then also, even when they didn't like the team, I could tell at the end they were respectful if they thought it was a good game. So, no, I thought all in all, but I actually think this event was a slam dunk. It's funny it comes on the heels of the fall finals where everyone's flaming it because it had all the like food problems and the venue looked shit and the Acadian Astralis drama going. This event was fire. It's funny. Think of how many times, Maui, we've donked on the World Finals as being not a very good event. This actually was easily their best World Finals. Like this one even had. I actually think the only problem on this one wasn't even their fault. It's just the Vitality having Jack's angle. Aside from that, everything else went dynamite at this event. What's not to like? I thought it was great.
Yeah. Oh no, this World Final was easily the best. I mean, what did they do before? It was Abu Dhabi twice, and I think Bahrain. And
that was one.
Yeah.
And I don't remember any of those 3. They even like 2 years ago, Abu Dhabi versus last year Abu Dhabi, the crowd improved, but it still wasn't full. It was probably about half, if even that. And this time, I mean, no, the Singapore crowd rocked it. And they, like you said, I mean, they just flat out cheered for Counter-Strike in a neutral way. That's something that they basically just lightly rooted for whatever team I would say was the most popular. Like Navi would have probably been the biggest.
Sure.
But they weren't there in the playoffs. G2 and FaZe had a huge amount of fans.
Sure.
Vitality actually had more fans than their opponent also. So no, it was really good. Like Vitality had more fans than MOUZ is what I mean. But yeah, no, G2 I think had more fans than Vitality. And for Astralis Spirit, I think they were rooting for Donk, but they were also, I think, rooting for Astralis, which was nice. It's like they're just cheering for.
By the way, that's actually somewhat informed in itself that they actually are fans of Donk. Remember, he hasn't played even a whole year yet at Tier 1, so the fact they even know him, like I wouldn't blame them if there's fans of Astralis in that game. You know, make more sense, right?
They're informed on recent developments in the scene. Like if they were like, oh, Astralis wins 4 majors, generic like fan approval, but knowing who Donk is, I think shows that they haven't just started, recently watching like a week before the week before the World Finals.
Yes.
Maui, I saw. Fair enough. No, I saw like you heard something about Donk and the Donk sense went off, but with that as well, you mentioned Paper Rex there, I think like a couple minutes ago. What people may not know as well is that all those players on that team before their most recent roster changes, those were all CS players. They all went together as a 5-man squad. So anyone who also says there's not enough like FPS talent in Asia to have a world-class team is just flat out wrong. All the most successful players in the Valorant teams right now in Asia usually either were pros in CS or played a bit of CS on the side before coming over to Valorant as well. So there's just so many things that need to click for it to happen, but I think we're as close as we've been to it happening in Asia since maybe 2019 when we used to have all those I-series out in Asia.
Yes. Okay then, Maui, what is your point?
Yeah, so I threw a lot of scrutiny at this guy at the beginning and I think it was for good reason. While watching the previous major, especially. What the
hell's this disclaimer? All right, go on, keep going.
It's
a good point, by
the
way.
It's going somewhere interesting. It's all good. I know.
Yeah. Okay, so during the last major, it became a pretty running gag with myself and Yanko that every time G2 were up in rounds, Taz would find a knack to call a timeout and just throw their momentum away. And it looked like some of the worst coaching you possibly could have introduced to a team like this. But I have to say, and I have to give him credit at this point, and notice I am not giving credit to Snacks. I do think that Taz is improving. I do think that I actually...
I do, even in his good points, like, but no, nothing to Snacks. But for Snacks, nothing. Death only. You just won the event, bro. Okay, Maui, my bad. I'm interrupting your good point. You keep going with your good point, Maui. My bad.
Yeah, no, I do think I do know at this point that Taz has improved as a coach. Okay. And I feel like, and the reason I'm bringing this up as my good point is that I do believe that there needs to be some semblance of a narrative correction, because I do feel like Taz has been done incredibly dirty with all of the comms listen-ins for the past 4 or 5 months, where every single time we're getting, guys, the way to win the round is by winning the pistol. Haha. Okay. And then it's like mic off. And it's like, okay, these are just useless. These are flat out useless comms. But I've now noticed enough times, like in multiple tournaments, where Taz is calling a timeout and there is enough of a strategic change going on. So whether Taz is actually the one saying that, I am still uncertain. However, I do know that when he is calling a timeout, as he frequently does, he is actually doing something that is getting them to screw their heads on straight. And even if that is just a moral, some kind of like morale boosting phrase that, or like just some platitude that he's throwing out there, that's enough. I actually think that for whatever reason, G2 is smart enough as a team. Maybe he's saying stuff because we just never can hear the comms where he is saying stuff. And frankly, I've never heard it. And like, by the way, I am standing by them next time. I am standing, right. Like, you know, when we're doing some of these segments, I can't hear what they're saying towards the end of a game. And I still personally haven't heard him say anything that has been strong in terms of strategic depth. But if he's contributing in these timeouts and they're looking as good as they do out of those timeouts, he's accomplishing something that's positive for the 5 people that he's working with. So I'm just saying that I think Taz is actually improving. I'm giving myself a narrative correction here. I'm giving the community a narrative correction, because I still see in mid-rounds this team fall apart. But I feel like the opening plans is what has been impressive for me for G2 lately. Like, their starters look actually good enough. And some of that does come after the fact that they might lose a string of rounds. Taz calls a timeout. Okay, now they're back on track with a good opener. So that's as much as I imagine a coach should be doing. And if I didn't have that whole listen-in component of the broadcast, I would actually probably just think flat out he's probably a good tactical coach. But I've yet to hear anybody say that. And obviously, the Stewie interview from a few months ago is pretty damning still, that he wasn't really offering anything too productive. But I feel like that actually needs to change.
Come on, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a bit hard. I'm parsing it all because he's like, good point. Taz is okay sometimes, maybe not on tactics, not as a leader of men, but you know, he
did circle around a lot before he got to the point, didn't he?
Yeah, Kid has his moments, and you also, you know, snuck in a little jab at Snacks there, where you're like, I'm not giving Snacks any credit, you know, as well.
Yes, I did.
You kind of have to wonder if there's more, if the reason why things are clicking a little bit more is like there's some sort of simpatico between Snacks and Taz that wasn't present with Hooksy and Taz. And like you said, if it's just a morale thing, maybe, you know, the contribution Taz has on this team is he has an IGL who's on side, who he knows the tricks to bring up the team morale because he's talking to someone he played with for years. So he knows, you know, what to say to Snacks to get him, you know, out of his mind fog and say, you know, if Snacks is in charge of the tactics, maybe Taz knows what to get the best tactics out of Snacks by way of their previous working relationship. I would, like you said, I would love to hear more I would need to hear more comms from them or more something, get a better insight to what Taz is actually saying in these pauses he call. But it could just come down to the fact that the team but at the same time, you might have to caution it by saying, oh, maybe the team's in a really good mood and they're, you know, just calling more freely, calling more openly because they know the roster changes are coming. So it's hard to tell right now. But like you said, I do think Taz is on the upward trajectory from his relatively weak start with the team when he, you know, came on.
Right, first of all, start with the meta-contextual response to Maui's point. So as I said, first of all, I notice also Maui actually is a toxic individual. He's actually, this is how I know he's malicious, because he even love bombs the people he hates on. What he does is, he gives you nothing. First of all, he's distant. He's like using the fucking Dennis system or something. He's distant. He refuses to give any like empathy or emotion. He's just harshly critiquing you incredibly hard from the beginning. If you know with Taz, he was basically sort of like, Why does he even have this job? It was almost that vibe, right? Then what he does is finally, when the fans also turn against you, then he comes in like the redeemer, like, oh no, actually, look, maybe I can, hey, let's dust you off. Come on, we can still make something out of this. Hey, get your head on your shoulders. I believe in, well, sort of, I'll be standing behind you. If you say any stupid shit again, I'll tell him on stream. But yeah, I think you could do a good job. Hey, and you with that shit of snacks, like you're winning with him at least. You're better than him. And then you love bomb him. So then they go, oh my God, is this what it feels like for an alpha to give me emotion? Oh my God, this is addictive. And then he hopes he can spin it into some like, oh, see, like he said earlier, he goes like, there was a lot of memes and jokes I was making about, definitely all real analysis. You just thought it was trash. But now he's like, the jokes have gotten out of hand, guys. It's you, the fans. You're to blame for the things I've said, and you've gone way too far with them. So now, the thing is though, I do appreciate that latter aspect of Mnmzzz. It's the fact that he has learned from Thorin in this sense. Richard does it as well, is you always have to have the contingency plan in case it goes wrong. So like, for example, everyone thought that thing of like, haha, what are you going to say now, Thorin? GL is owning. Yeah, that just means I can say what a genius Alexi B must be. This guy was nothing in Apex, but tell you what, that Alexi B guy, fucking hell, it's almost like he's piloting his brain or something. Like, basically, Alexi B's fucking Shinji, and then GL's the Evangelion at this point, the angel at this point in time, and that is the only context in which GL would be an angel, but at least enough about some of the things I've seen on stream with his girlfriend, but enough about that. So now we will talk actually about Taz for real, which is, this is actually a take, if you notice, I've sort of seeded on all my shows every time this topic has come up, which is, it depends what type of coach you think G2 needs. Because, sorry, I do think Robban was a good coach in FaZe, but I've been there. As far as I can tell, he never did he wasn't doing what Blade was doing, put it this way, but he also wasn't doing nothing. He was doing man management, and he was doing things like he befriended the right people, and then he also knew how to bring someone in who's new to the group, and then he also knew how to make people, he was like that sort of friend where they don't have to actually break up an argument. The argument just doesn't happen because they cut you off at the pass, or they say the right thing he's just bothered about that. Anyway, let's go over here. And so he was mega, I always thought, if you had superstar players, and just making it a chill vibe, but keeping everyone, on the right sort of page. And it wasn't about tactical stuff, because in that team, you had Carrigan, and you had the best players. You had basically, if you remember, all the FaZe lineups that were good were basically HLTV top 20 players. These players already were the finished product, basically, and they know how they're going to play. If you're asking Taz to be that type of IGL, which admittedly, when he joined the team, maybe people were. Maybe Hunter, Nico, and honestly think they already know how to play the game. That type of coach, I believe he could be really good at, which is why when these things come out on the comms, I always say the problem is you can't know in context what he's saying that for. We're all interpreting it just literally. So a very quick example would be that recent one where he just said, we need to win more rounds. Or the one where Maui said, you have to win the pistol round if you want to win the game. As I've said many times, if I want to be charitable, look, everyone else has been uncharitable. So in this case, I'm not saying that's what I think. Well, I'll give you the charitable reading. The charitable reading there is, that is something, right? I'll give you a quick example, right? Before the New England Patriots with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady used to play against the Baltimore Ravens, who had a legendary defense, supposedly Bill Belichick, unironically, would say to Brady every time they went on the field, keep track of where Ed Reed is, the amazing free safety of people know, who was unbelievable, right? Now, Tom Brady's watched all the footage of Ed Reed. He knows that. He also knows, by the way, he's a fucking veteran quarterback. He knows you don't just let the safety get lost on the field and, throw the ball. But Belichick isn't saying you don't know that this guy can. What he's saying is, let me just give you a mental protocol update. Remember on the list of things to remember, this is one of the things I want you to hit. So I would say, you could, if you want to be charitable, what you'd say is this. Taz was saying to you, focus extra on the pistol round. It's not just a random round. This round has a massive effect on whether you win the game. Sets your economy. Win more rounds. What you're saying there is, don't just let this game get away from you. Don't act like you're going through the motions and you'll have 7 rounds to win. Maybe actually you need to win rounds right now, otherwise the game's just going to get... Again, if you want to be charitable, I would say that is a form of coaching. That is a style of coaching. Certain players, by the way, would respond way better to that than telling them a specific micro thing, which I think everyone wants. The joke of this is, by the way, based on these exact things that Maui's talking about and how dirty they've done him on broadcast, you could actually now just become a fraud coach and just using segments like that. You could be shit as a coach, but then the second you know that they open that mic, you could just be like, guys, I need you to pull back. I need some push-pull on the... That could all just be nonsense, but the fan would go, oh my God, he's cooking. That thing years ago, this is aged well, guys. Remember when years ago, when he was in Complexity, the rumour said, because of interviews, Blame F is really diligent. He stays up all night watching demos. I've always said, I never heard anyone ever point out a brilliant tactic complexity he ever did. But that narrative lived for about 3 years. For 3 years, people just kept saying, of course, Blame F has to be the IGL. You know, he's really dedicated. He's watching demos. It's like, no one ever told me like what he was doing, though. They never said, like, you know, he's doing amazing splits on Mirage or the way he used it. And so I do think, like, some of what we're judging here, we can't really know if it's shit or it's anything. It's the same as the concept of, if you just heard someone say, hey, love you, sweetheart, you might just go, oh, it's just a frivolous thing to say, but maybe actually that had incredible emotional meaning to that person. Maybe that's actually like their pet name or something, and you saying it in that moment buoys them up or something. So I do, put it this way, at the end of it all, I will say, I was quite skeptical when he took this gig. So my last take goes like this. I think also that they were a little bit cynical in G2, guys, because I actually think if you think of when they recruited Taz, based on that story that says last year, before they even had Taz, they were going to fire Huxley anyway if he didn't win Cologne. I think they already knew that Huxley lineup was like had limited time left. I think they already knew at some point we were going to replace him. So actually, I think it was a genius time to recruit him, because think about what you know now with all the stories put together. You know that you were going to lose Huxley at some point. By the way, you were already going to have to integrate an IGL. In this case, by the way, it's a rookie IGL in terms of the tier 1 level, and it's your old mate Snacks. And then lastly, you know you're losing Nico anyway. So at this point, what you're basically saying to Taz is this. Look, good news and bad news. Bad news is you're probably not going to be an elite coach in year 1. And it's going to be really hard and a lot of scrutiny. Good news is you're not fired, though. We'll just keep you here. It's a transition period. We're moving on from IGL. We're moving on from star players. We're going to have a different squad in 2025 anyway. So I actually think in that sense, G2 sort of did him a favour, because I think actually, no matter how bad the Twitter comments or people on HLTV or Reddit get, I think he will absolutely survive this year, and it'll be next year he's judged on. And by the way, if he does well with a different lineup next year, especially if he didn't have like Nico or MONTCRISTO, I think he would get a lot of plaudits, and at that point the whole narrative turns around. So I think it's totally fair to criticise him. I don't think he's been the best coach. Also, as well as being done dirty, he got done dirty eventually because he himself set up this pattern of, as you say, shit timeouts, then looking like he's saying nothing. And then obviously he did the mistake, which, listen, some people like this. I'm not a fan of it. I'm actually personally not a fan of coaches going, hey, it was me that fucked up. And it's like, what they actually mean is like, well, it wasn't me that fucked up, but I'll just say it was me, so you tank the aggro onto me. I don't personally like that. I would just say something like, hey, I defend my teammates, or, you know, we'll discuss that internally. Like, I don't think you have to do that. So I will just say, though, because he said it was him, and he said it was him who did all the shit vetoes, that also is going to make people think you're shit, mate, and want you fired. So the downside of tanking the aggro is, spoiler, think of it like tanking aggro in a game. You die if you take too much aggro, you idiot. Like, you don't have unlimited health here. You aren't actually like fucking Dr. Mundo 10 years ago. It's a fucking deep cut, whatever. So I actually think the Taz will look. I still think they could get a better coach. But then again, as I said, I don't even know what their roster is going to be next year. So I don't even know if this would be like an appropriate team that has to have a better coach. And then lastly, I do think, much like a Robban, I think if you have that type of a team, I think he could be really good at that. Like, one of the reasons Taz was an amazing captain is he actually can do those Cadian speeches, and sometimes they hit. Like, sometimes like, he can make you feel that emotional. And remember, here's the difference as well, guys. Cadian, he only did that shit a few years ago. Taz really did do all this shit. He was in all those finals, bro. He won all those majors. Pick all your favourite players for 1.6. Taz beat them all. He actually beat every single one of them. So I also think even like simple words from someone of that status can hit a lot harder than a random guy who's just an analyst who comes in and says the same thing. So it's not always just about the words you say. It's also about who you are and what the message being conveyed is. So I agree with you. I think it's a good one as a good point. I also do think as well, you look at these last few events, it's not just that people shoot people in the head. They have looked better as a team. So you have to give him some of that props too. At the end of the day, if we're going to judge team, if we're going to say when G2 loses, it's Taz's fault, we have to give him some plaudits when they win, for fuck's sake. I mean, by the way, also, this is another event you'll notice with loads of mega teams. It's not like they beat bombs. They beat the best teams in the world. So, no, I'm with you. I'm with you.
And if we're saying as well, I feel we're viewing Taz's coaching by the angle of like, what does Nico need? What does Mnmzzz need? What does Hunter need to, from these speeches from Taz? And they may think anything he says is like trite platitudes, banal, boring stuff. But if we're Taz working with the management of G2 here, maybe it's not necessarily what Taz is giving to Nico that matters to G2. It's how is Taz's relationship with MOUZ MD? Because they're clearly positioning MOUZ to be the replacement for Nico, to be the star rifler on the squad, the move maker, the superstar, the match-winning rifler. So people take it for granted, I think, because MOUZ had such a smooth transition to Tier 1, has been doing so well on G2, that he's never really worked with a Tier 1 coach before, has never really worked with a Tier 1 squad. He might not... and he wasn't really on LAN a lot before joining G2. He played a couple Fragadelphias here and there. He went to a couple RMRs, a couple, Brazilian events with Team 1 or 00 Nation. But we don't know. I would love to know his emotional state on these big stages, because perhaps what Taz is, doing, where he's like, all right, guys, calm down. We need to win the pistol rounds, or, let's focus on winning round by round. Nico's going to be like, well, duh, of course we need to win round by round. We win 13 rounds, we win the game. But for a young player like Mnmzzz, who's been put in this incredible position where he's been asked, hey, Nico, one of the greatest riflers of all time, yeah, he's going to Falcons. Can you just take his spot and be just as good as him, 6 months into this team? That Taz, I could be completely wrong here. I'm going to give like the Mauisnake, sneak out where I'm like, maybe Taz isn't doing anything right. Maybe he is a fraud. But if he isn't being a fraud, perhaps the way he's coaching is to the benefit of Mnmzzz and to the benefit of, the benefit of the future of the roster rather than the current of the roster, because he knows I don't need to waste any time on, making sure Nico's in the right headspace or making sure, Nico's activated. Of course, I'd like to win these trophies at the end of the year, especially the major. But if he's going to leave, I'm going to focus on getting, Mnmzzz up to the best place he can be mentally, emotionally, tactically, because he's the player I'm going to need to win trophies if I want to, have G2 be successful and keep my job.
By the way, just as a quick aside, I saw that on Reddit, they took Richards, a clip from his stream where he said you're getting trained, basically. It was actually a clip during the election thing. But is it actually, like, behind the scenes, the part I'm asking about is this, right? The rumour was that it was Train coming back anyway, as people have seen from the graphics. The question I have is this: is it behind the scenes also the rumour that it will be Vertigo that goes out? Do you know, Mnmzzz? Has anyone said anything?
Honestly, I don't even know if it's Train yet. Like, everyone's saying it's Train, but I feel like that almost might be like a self-perpetuating like rumor mill, where it's like, look, it's a picture of concrete, it must be Train. People are like, yeah, it's Train, of course. Like, our only real piece of evidence is one, Vertigo's awful and no one plays it, and a picture of concrete. So I don't doubt that there's people who know more than me, and that might be where it's coming from. But at the same time, like, we don't have any proof.
Sure.
The only proof I have is I don't think they played Vertigo once at Rio, and then they maybe played Vertigo like once in Singapore. So it's like, if pros aren't playing the map, if the fans aren't playing the map, if Valve's internal data from their competitive mode says people aren't enjoying it, then Vertigo, I think, is the likely map to leave, because it's been in the pool since
ages, mate. 2021.
Yeah. 2019. It's been it's long in the tooth. I mean, yes. Dust 2 came back more recently, and the only map that's probably older than it is like Inferno and Mirage. So, and a couple others, I'm sure. But ultimately, it's an old map. It's a change people don't like. If Train does seem like a logical map to replace it, but it could be Season for all we know. I mean, that Season is concrete. Why can't it be Season? Or right,
what I'll do then is this, because I'm going to make my good point, whichever it is. So if it can be either, so I'll do both. If Train is returning, hurrah! I thought Train was a really great map. By the way, as a random detail, also very fortuitous. If people don't know, the highest rated player ever on Train is Simple. That was actually a map he was the shit on. He was fucking unbelievable. Because as you can imagine, it's a great map for hybrids. You can all pull it outside. But first of all, if Train is returning, brilliant. It's actually one of the maps I always liked. I actually think it's a classic design in Counter-Strike. I even think, because I saw people like Chad pointing this out, even though CSGO Train played very different to 1.6, you don't do the like under the trains bit and stuff. I actually thought the way they made the dynamic of CSGO Train work, though, was very good, though. Actually, the segmented aspects of the map played very well. I even think, as an aside, look, I'm purely speculating on this one, but I actually get the feeling that it actually might be even better with the new smokes. Like, I actually think the idea you can like pop the smoke for a millisecond and see through would be awesome on this map, because this is the map where you throw a million smokes outside and then half of the game is like, sensing if someone's there and when do I push this. I think actually you could get a lot of like dynamic players and team players set up, especially for CT side, by the way. Maybe you can quickly pop the middle smoke, see if they're there, then pop back and if they were hiding or faking. I could see a lot of tactical play. By the way, also, Train in every version of Counter-Strike is a tactical map. And I have to say, if there's one thing we are crying out for at the moment in CS, it is tactical map. CS2 isn't just like stronger for peekers and AKs and T-side. It's also the fact that half the maps are just bloody fragger maps with like 3 lanes and you can just go mid every time. Like, every map's bloody just 2 now, it feels like. So I think that is a flaw. And then the other side is, if it's not specifically Train, I'll still take it as long as it's Vertigo going. At this point, I'll try any map except Vertigo. I think Vertigo, I've made the point in the past, it really fucking sucks. By the way, you know when I do that thing where I say, can anyone actually think of an all-time great Vertigo game? I don't think people realize how dark this is. I say that because I actually think nobody can. But even if somehow you could think of one good game, that would just be the exception that proved the rule, that all the other games weren't good. So I just think it's not just that people don't play it, it's just a shit map. I mean, I've said this in the past as well. I don't even know anyone who likes it. Like, even people like Complexity who punish pick it will admit to you, yeah, we'd rather it just wasn't in the game. Like, when someone's saying to you, I'd rather you take out my surprise way to win the game, that's a pretty bad indictment of what the map's at. That means they don't even essentially enjoy winning on that map. So I think both sides, which if it's all combined, then mega. It's a super good point. Otherwise, if Train's coming back, I love that. If Vertigo's going, I love that. I think for me, if this indeed is what happened, I think it's a slam dunk. This seems like one of the rare times where Valve might actually nail the map people want back and the map they want out. By the way, that latter part is the key one, Mnmzzz. Normally, they seem to have their own logic as to which map they remove. They don't seem to go based on, like, what's vetoed the most or what people say they don't like. They have their own reasons. And the reason why it has to be Vertigo is because of that detail you just mentioned. Bro, this is where everyone's brain does just have like a problem thinking of time because of the online period of COVID and all that shit. Because people don't realize this map's now been in the pool, I think, as long as like any CSGO map without being replaced. Like, it's basically had this insane run because we had 2 years where we didn't even think about changing maps. It's actually been in the pool 1 billion years now, like a crazy length of time. So it's also just due a change, isn't it? It's just due to go out the pool. By the way, it's also the only map I've ever seen where I don't think any changes ever really fundamentally upgraded the map. Like, they tweaked it a little bit, and some of the changes I liked or didn't, but I've never seen them ever do a change. The most famous example is the old Overpass. Overpass started really bad and became really good. This one was like, it's like polishing a turd. It did like 5% improvement, if anything. So you can pick any side of this. You can pick the Train side, the Vertigo side, just getting a new map. What do you guys think? What do you think on this idea we're getting a new map?
I mean, I think that if it is Train for Vertigo, then that would be my dream. Like, that's exactly what I want. I feel like actually Dust 2 has started playing way better. I actually legitimately enjoy
it's a pretty
Dust
spicy
2
map, though, isn't it? Yeah.
As a viewing experience. I don't actually love playing it as much as I used to, which is kind of a weird thing to say. But in terms of actually watching it at a competitive level, or the esports side of it, I love it. I think it's so dynamic. The long fights are so good. The new meta of people blocking off kind of that area in front of car with a big smoke as a CT to try to slow down the T's and then play in front of it. That's an awesome aspect because the smokes are just wider now. And I do feel like the door flip has also been very strong for it too, which obviously happened like 4 years ago. But if people remember, the doors were facing the other direction, and it made defending the B bomb site feel like you had to actually be in the site as opposed to getting to stand outside on the ramp. And if they don't smoke the door, well, now you got a free shot as they're coming out of tunnel. I feel like that map has significantly improved. But as for the greater picture here, for as a whole, I just hope it's Vertigo. Like, I actually don't really see another map right now that I want taken out that badly. I would not mind also, by the way, if it's not because people have been teasing cache updates for quite some time too. So if it's cache instead of Vertigo, I'm okay with that. I do think that makes the map pool a little bit too skill heavy, or keeps it too skill heavy, because as it stands right now, Dust 2, Mirage, Ancient, even Anubis to an extent, and Vertigo itself are all sort of maps you can kind of pug out in a weird way. And I feel like I want more tactical maps that highlight to me how the teamwork is actually a cut above the other rosters. When I see, like, because, like, for example, I was looking at win streaks the other day. I think some Twitter account posted it, and the maps with the longest win streaks throughout Tier 1 CS history had been, like, Nuke had a few of the best streaks ever. Train had a few of the best streaks ever. Inferno had some good streaks. And then there were some one-offs. There was I think like Space Soldiers were really good at cache or something like that, which led to them having a streak. But all in all, it was mostly like Nuke and Train. And to me, that's a signifier that the map is good. If the map is good and teams can actually work together on it very well and consistently, that's going to lead to them having a good win streak on it. It's not a one-to-one. Obviously, there are outliers in this case, but if multiple top-tier teams, era-defining teams, have win streaks on both Nuke and Train, that probably means that the map plays the way that you would expect it to, not just because they're good, or else why don't they have win streaks on, say, like, Mirage or Dust 2. It's because those maps are inherently a little bit more random day to day because there's so much more involved in terms of skill, and people's skill is obviously fluctuating and frequently fleeting. So I would want the map pool changed, and I've wanted it changed for quite some time. So if it does happen, I think this is all in all a very good thing to happen. I also feel like you said, the Vertigo angle. Like I watched back the Star Ladder Berlin Major Vertigo game between Liquid and Astralis.
The one everyone loves. Yeah, it's not a very good game, by the way.
They only went mid one time the entire game.
It's basically just people winning CT rounds for real. It's not a very good game, boys. I'm telling you, it's not a good
yeah,
rewatch.
it was pretty bad to watch. Yeah, the only round that any team either team went middle in a concerted effort on the T side was the very last round of the game when Liquid were just basically out of ideas and they just sent it mid and they just got farmed. It was stupid. It was that map. And middle is barely better today. It is a little bit better today. It's something that people have to keep their eye on because the lurking has gotten better. And there's been a few plays to set up mid control. But no, all in all, Vertigo can go die in a fire. Like, I just need this map to go away.
Well, do keep in mind that people, if that's the most legendary, I think that is the most legendary Vertigo moment. And it isn't legendary because of what happened on the map. It's what happened before the map where Astralis, picked it into Liquid. And everyone's like, oh my God, they don't, play this map all the time. Yes. What are Liquid going to do? Astralis are insane. Like, that's what people remember for. People don't remember it for any single moment to moment after action on the map. So it's not like it's good because it's good because people so infrequently played it back then that it was novel being picked in the way it was at such a crucial moment. And it's the same now. People pick it as a punish pick, or they pick it, if they lose the veto and they need to go somewhere wild. It's not a map pros want to play. And, the more we talk about it, the more I think it does have to be trained, because you did mention, it could be Cash. I don't think they'd be making a new version of Cash if the old version of Cash was going to be put in right now. Because, there have been those tweets from FM Pone about him, remaking Cash for like a third or fourth time with the new models. And he's not even close to being done. It's going to be another year before he's finished and before he play tested and before he does color balancing and da-da-da-da-da. So they wouldn't put in old Cash if new Cash was being made right now. And there's no map we've heard a single peep from any of the any of the like third-party map creators that Valve has particularly been interested in highlighting or putting into competitive. So it's either train or something so completely unexpected that it's completely off everyone's radar. And I think we can all agree, I'm so excited if Train gets back in the pool. I think some of the best finals in the game have happened on Train, whether it's the Atlanta Major, VP Astralis, or if it's 2018 or 2019 Kato, the FaZe Fnatic finals, where I believe map 5 was
the one where
Train,
Flusher did that insane 4v3 move on Olaf.
Yeah, I think that was resulted in an ace or something. Like, those were probably two of the best finals in that kind of section of CS:GO. So it'd be fantastic if it comes in right after the China Major. And an underappreciated aspect of this is any map they do put in after the Major in 2025 is going to get so much playtesting and it gets so much refinement before the Austin Major, because we're going to have so much more tournaments next year that I think whatever map comes in is going to get so much playtime because of how many more events we're going to have next year, that it should be in a really good state competitively in terms of what the team's tactics ahead of the Austin Major. So it's going to be a really exciting time for, I think, a new map to come into the pool, especially if it's Train.
One thing that I've actually taken into account when I'm grading a map or thinking about it in my own rubric that I've just made in my own head, basically, is that I have done this on stream before too, but it's just that I want to see skill expression and style expression in the way that people call it. And again, to bag on Vertigo further, it's that most rounds on Vertigo are one of two calls. And that's what's so frustrating about the map from a viewer perspective. I feel like people haven't necessarily talked about, like, why is it boring? Why is it not fun to watch? It's because practically every team calls one of two strategies to start every single T-side round. And to me, that is a lack of skill expression. It's that you are going to wait out the bottom ramp smoke most of the time. You are going to retake ramp with the flash and multiple people swinging. You are going to walk up ramp, and then you're going to do one of two A splits. You're going to send more people up the ramp side, or you're going to send up like maybe a slightly heavier short side lean on the Ivy side, whatever you want to call that. Or the other thing is you just do a B pop. Like, there's basically two calls on the map, And I feel like people to this day have this weird construction of Mirage in their head of why they don't like it. They just say it's boring or it's played out. I get it. You are playing way too many Faceit games and you're not banning it for whatever reason, so you decide to keep playing it. But in terms of actually a viewing experience, I have never been bored by Mirage. I've literally never been bored by it. There is so much skill expression. There's so many ways that you could play it. Like, if you're a team like Heroic back in the day with Cadian, you were so aggressive. You were taking map control back. You were always on the CT. You were gamble stacking. You were going for a push into ramp, into Palace with 2 people, sometimes 3 people pushing ramp. You were putting Tessus on an island and then like doing something in like a 4-man mid crunch. Like, there were all these ways to show what it is you were deciding to do in a macro sense at all times. And even G2, like, they have their own way to playing. They basically play default every single round. They like play all 5 players in the spots that they like to play. They almost never push for information other than like Snacks or Mobs will sometimes get frisky, but they're usually just going to fight for mid or make their, like, Nico barely leaves connector, but like that's his skill expression. He just wants to stay in these positions for a long time. And like, that's so different from another team like, say, Vitality. Vitality are much more active, for example. Like, all of these teams play it so drastically different, and it's like the nameplate test. If you took away the nameplates of a team, can I tell that that team is playing that map? Unfortunately, when it comes to Vertigo, I can't tell. I can't tell who's playing every single time. Like, that's why all of these games are lost to the annals of history, because I just simply don't know every single game. Like, oh yeah, that is the traditionally complexity style of playing Vertigo. All they're doing is playing very like risky, random style, popping smokes, and then boosting floppy sometimes towards B and they're trying to take it. Like, that's it. But every team does the exact same thing. There's almost like no trademark style for them, even in terms of like the percentage or balance of how often they're going for certain plays. Like, practically now on Vertigo, it's 50-50. People go A and B almost the exact same amount on every single team. I don't really see one side leaning one way or the other. And that's disappointing, and that's why we consider it a bad map and a poor viewing experience, because you're just going for the same repeated plays over and over again, and there's almost no variation, even in terms of percentages.
Well, you say that, but there is one team I can always tell when they play Vertigo.
Okay.
Nip,
Right
did he
there.
say? Did you say Nip?
Nip, yeah, right there, Nip. I can always tell when Nip plays Vertigo.
Okay.
Which, once again,
It's just a disaster.
So I think honestly that might be the number 2 most iconic moment on Vertigo after it being in the pool for 5 years. The Astralis Starladder pick and Nip's Vertigo versus Omcall. So what does that say about the society we live in, where it's a team shitting the bed because they weren't ready for it, and a team shitting the bed because they weren't ready for life? Like, it's ultimately it's not fun, it's not tactical. There's no good clips. Get it out.
By the way, that I can even say as well, if you want to make it more ridiculous, the other most famous one is this year at the Major with the Spirit Phase one. Right, guys, that we've just given 3 examples, which the hype is that it shouldn't be picked. Like, the hype was, what the fuck, they picked that, but they're not good on it. Like, that's not really like the best intro to, like, and this is the greatest game ever played on this map. Like, the best game on Mirage would be 2 teams that are good on fucking Mirage, wouldn't they? And they wouldn't be like, oh my God, neither team plays this. Anyway, speaking of things that are black, Asphalt, and getting deals that you wouldn't normally expect, like getting rid of some trash like Vertigo and getting some awesome shit like fucking Train. How about Raycon AirPods, which are kindly sponsored this episode? Because obviously one of the things people get excited about for Black Friday / Cyber Monday is the notion you can get an amazing deal you wouldn't normally get. But with Raycon, that's not even necessary, because you can get an amazing deal on premium audio every day of the year with Raycon. But they also do have sales for Black Friday and for Cyber Monday. They're actually doubling down on their value, and our viewers can get up to 30% site-wide if they go there. So for a Black Friday / Cyber Monday deal that you can appreciate, Raycon's everyday AirPods, like these newer ones, have a bunch of features, like they have a 32-hour battery life, multi-point connectivity that you can connect to multiple devices at once. They also come with the active noise cancellation, so you can basically just like press it, and then it's really easy to like listen to stuff. You can do, that's the awareness mode. They have the noise noise cancelling. So by the way, awesome for flights. If people don't know, if you're actually someone who travels a lot, noise cancelling headphones are one of the biggest quality of life upgrades you can actually ever give yourself. Like for real, it will cut out all the plane noise. Even by the way, it will even actually unironically cut out like people shrieking and babies crying. It'll just limit it all. It'll make it go into the background a lot more. It's way easier to sleep, read a book, etc. I've always enjoyed that as one of the ways to use it. Actually, the awareness mode thing is awesome as well. Say you're like using it, listening to maybe this podcast first of all. You could be listening to this podcast while doing something else. You could be doing your chores. Then if someone rings the doorbell or something, you don't have to go, oh, quick, where do I get to my pit? You just press like the button and then it pauses and you can do that. And also they have this whole thing with the sound system where it's like, it doesn't just like block 100% of sounds. Like some sounds that you kind of want to hear, they can get through and then the other ones can't. So it's actually quite, the tech is really well designed. I also find the charging thing, it works very, very well. Comes in loads of different colors. I just like the classic black one. I am sort of like one of those players who, like, is it Elise? I just play with the default skins in the game, even when people did give me the sick ones. I just like to be old school and just be like, I've just got it like that, mate. It's just my game, not the skin that did it. So I like to go with the classic chic black look, but they've got loads of different colors as well. Now, they also have a 30-day happiness guarantee. So if you don't like them, let them know. You can get it back. So it's time to save big on Black Friday / Cyber Monday. Go to raycon.com/snake. It's on your screen today to get up to 30% off site-wide, everything on the site. That's right. You'll get up to 30% off everything on the website when you go to buyraycon.com/snake. Thank you to everyone who did that. And also you get to save some money on some good headphones. Right. To move on, what is your bad point, Mnmzzz?
Okay, wait. So before that, though, because I know, when you see these podcasts, you always wonder about like the internal workings of it. You're like, oh, how does certain mechanics work, right? And I just want to peel back the curtain for a bit, so people do know. So like when you're a guest on Snake and Banter, you do hear in advance when the like Thorin's always like, oh yeah, we're gonna do the ad read around here, and you're like, okay, like I'll be mentally prepared for it. But he never tells you like what the what the read in is gonna be. And so I wasn't expecting it, and he said asphalt. I'm like, well, where's he going with this? Black, and I'm like, oh, like, and just so you know, it does catch us off guard as well. And I don't think Alex, Alex, you've done a couple, Snake and Banters before as a, recurring guest for the last like 200 episodes.
I've got him on a few, I guarantee. I've had a few where he thought I was going to make like some CS points. Like, it's the ad, I've got it a few. I've got him a few times.
God, I get this,
Thorin gets into a certain voice.
I do.
His cadence changes.
The cadence, the speed.
Yeah.
In a way, the stupid thing is, it's actually like a more professional voice, isn't it? Because I sort of like slow it down a bit and then say it in a really smooth. But the sad thing is, as soon as you hear that tone, you're like, what's he selling now? Like
his accent drops. Actually,
it's the salesman on the street. It's the
exactly. Hey, can I speak to you for about 5 minutes? Like the second you hear that, you're like, well, I don't know. But then again, if they were offering brilliant Raycon mods, maybe I'd listen and enjoy the features.
Maybe you would. It's like when any YouTube video you watch now, it's da 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 da, and it's like, and now we're gonna talk about, my sponsor for this video, and you're like, here we go. But anyway, yeah, just so people do know, it does take you by surprise every single. Other than the cadence, no giveaways. Yes, no giveaways. So moving into my bad point is, someone who I've been really unimpressed with on the recently in the field is Liquid. I feel, if you look at the recent performances, especially I would like to point a finger at Yakinder and Ultimate. I think they're two players who have been really letting me down, especially Yakinder, considering we've now tried this player on 3 different iterations of Liquid. And every single time we try him, he has an initial honeymoon period where he's really, where he's gangbusters, where he's posting big numbers, where he's playing great in his roles. But as we've seen recently, I think he's something like a 0.9, 0.92, 96 rating. It doesn't seem like he's doing particularly well on the eye test. And Liquid's results, I think, are suffering for it. If we look at, the recent results, since I believe the start of Pro League, the only teams they've beat in international competitions are Complexity, beat them twice, and Spirit once. And as we head into the major, I'm honestly worried about Liquid's prospects of doing well with the Yakinder lagging this much on the roster, not to speak of any of the other teams' problems recently.
So, wait. So Yakindar's honeymoon.
Well, there's no honeymoon. I mean, the honeymoon's long past. Let me say it this. Let me say it this way. I think he had a period of upturned results when he moved away from the Cadian roster, moving into the Twist roster. But even now, we're seeing him sort of. I just don't think we're really seeing it from him anymore. And I honestly wonder if they don't do well at this major, if it's going to be time to move away from him, because we've given him so many opportunities to play in different roles. He's called, he's lurked, he's played more of an aggressive rifling role. He's, had a complete team reformulate around him. And the only players I see is like consistently delivering on this team right now are NAF and Twist. And it's been said time and time again, the team does expect Yekindra to be a more present element on the squad. And he just does, for someone who is touted, leaving Virtus Pro as being like this next upcoming, like super, potential superstar who is touted, targeted by G2, targeted by Vitality. I'm just tired of Yekindra, honestly, as a player on this Liquid lineup. That's my bad point.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just a series of disappointments with him lately, unfortunately. Like, man, like, it feels like Liquid have tied a lot of their brand to Yekindar. Like, they released that recent profile about him, and I gave him passes for quite some time because in the Cadian Skulls iteration of the lineup, I really did feel like he was the only person being aggressive, and that's unfortunately, like, when you're the only aggressive rifler on a team, yeah, I feel like you're more likely to get stuffed repeatedly, unless you're, say, like a transcendent player, which unfortunately Yekindar has proven not to be. He was really just kind of figured out, and I feel like people were just so aware of what he was going to do. And I will just say, like, sometimes his aim is just bad. Like, legitimately, you watch him play, and he's being set up for something, and it takes him an extra 5 bullets to kill somebody that probably should have taken 2 or 3 bullets. Like, that's the eye test for you right there, in terms of you look at the stats, and it's obviously quite bad, but legitimately at this point, I feel like I'm not even really reliably expecting a quick kill out of him anymore. And I don't know how your mechanics fall down that far as well. I've made the hot take before. Like, I think he needs to build confidence outside the server, which can maybe bring some confidence back in the server. Like, legitimately, this would be one of the times where your mechanics were insane before. However many hours you had to put in to reach that level, I feel like you need to get back to that. And on top of that, I do think that he should probably just look towards, I don't usually prescribe stuff like this. Just start working out more. Just like get healthier again. Like I feel like
Okay.
like I brought that up before. It's like he's
As in, like, presumably, it's not like his hand is weak. Do you think it would affect his morale or his confidence? You mean the fact he's not in good shape or something? Is that the angle you're going with?
yeah.
Right.
Like, this is like the one time I've ever really looked at a player and been like, the weight gain has actually been.
But it's weird. Unironically, I know this will
skill.
sound weird, but I'm not speculating to be mean. He actually looks like he might be like a bit depressed or something, mate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've had that kind of vibe too. It's a bit of a strange
Yeah,
vibe, right?
I
Since he
I
gained the
think
weight
he's
and he
like,
was in America, you know.
yeah, I think he's depressed or something. Like I'm not really getting the same lively, bubbly
Yes.
guy that joined this team a year and a half ago. Like, when he first joined Liquid, he felt like a superstar. I think he felt like a rock star, and I don't know what came first. Like, I'm not like, was it him getting sad of leaving home? Like, because I also will say, like, I think he was kind of like a Latvian socialite, so I feel like he
Oh,
had a
right.
really
Okay.
strong network of people there, and I feel like because he's been away from home, he probably doesn't feel that same sort of he doesn't hold himself in that sort of regard anymore. Like, I don't know if anybody, like, I will say this, like, this is me actually relating and empathizing. I will say, when I lived in this is gonna sound really weird, and people that wouldn't get it won't get it if they've never left home and just lived in the same place their whole lives. Like, when I lived in New York and I lived in London, I actually felt like I was better on desks in a way, in certain aspects, because I felt like I was wittier, because I was engaging in social situations much more frequently, as
Okay.
opposed to monologuing on stream and podcasts all the time now. Like, I feel like on desks you need to be snappy and witty, and I feel like if you throw yourself into those kind of situations all the time, over and over again, you're gonna have that built in. Like, you're quicker on your feet in these kinds of moments. But it's actually why I'm moving back to a big city. But like, part of a reason. But beyond that, I just feel like it helped my confidence. It actually helped my confidence. I felt very lively in these areas, and I felt like I brought that sort of energy when I traveled overseas. And I feel like right now, for whatever reason, like, he either needs to move back home to Latvia, or he needs to just like have a big extracurricular life change. And I think if he's living in LA, like, this is crazy. Like, I've said before, get back in the dojo. Like, just start, like, sign up to Equinox, dude. Like, just sign up to a really expensive gym and just like get into the gym. Like, to start taking classes. Like, it actually makes you feel like a god. So just do it.
So the issue is not enough spin classes. Okay. I mean,
Legitimately, it does help. Like it does help these places. Like
Sure.
if you're around, okay, I'm gonna say this. Equinox doesn't sponsor this. If you're in an expensive ass gym taking a class with like upper middle class and above people, and they all look hot, you will work your
Oh, it's
damnedest to look
aspirational.
good again.
Yeah, it is. It is aspirational.
Yeah, like that's the hardest I ever work out is when I'm in those kinds of gyms.
Also,
Okay?
by the way, even though this isn't usually like a topic because we're all nerds and actually we've all seen a million fat and ugly people who never put any effort into playing in fucking a gym ever and who were sick at the game, I will say, if we're making this like general life advice, I actually do agree with that. The other reason why I also think in going to the gym helps in that sense is it means every day you get like a win. The win is you went to the gym, you did your health, you did that. That helps, especially if you're in the scenario he's in, where in his job he's taking an L all the time. As we're saying, Liquid, the team's losing, but individually he's losing all the time. And even worse, I'm sure in his case, because he's trying to replicate a role, which as Maui said was like an incredibly like difficult spot, which is like the aggressive rifler. If you don't know, guys, one of the reasons I never wig out when Exertion has a bad tournament is like, bro, this is why Donk is goated. Because Donk shouldn't have as many good tournaments as he does. He should have like coin flip tournaments where it just goes bad. Donk has like single matches where it goes bad. Someone like Exertion, because of the style he's trying to play, you'll have games where you just get shot in the side of the head every game. The flash goes off slightly too late. The person doesn't follow up in when you get the kill. There's a million factors can go off. Your IGL runs out of ideas and you are just running through a brick crawl over and over again. The problem for Yekindar, I'll start on the Yekindar angle, is his whole excuse for the beginning of CS2 was it was the Cadian team. Like Cadian's like, I've heard all these stories. It sounds like it was really bad. It's his leadership. He won't listen to me. He won't take my ideas about. The problem with that is your literal boy Twists, who fucking loves Yekindar, along with the Team Liquid the org. He's your IGL bro, and I guarantee he is absolutely calling things for you and trying to help you, and he wants you. Here's the sad thing. Maybe Yekindar doesn't get this. Twists wants Yekindar to succeed. I'm telling you, like he isn't someone. In fact, I agree. By the way, I'll answer that question earlier. I think if Liquid do badly, either they don't make the major or they just like bomb in the Swiss, I think he will be fired from his job. I think essentially Liquid do like him. They really like him. They have built the whole org around him. They loved like what he brought tactically, and he helped them upgrade and move on from the Nitro era. Obviously, by the way, the first year he was there, he was a really good player too. The problem is between the IGL era, which they understand tanked their squad, the recent play where he was shit, and then lastly now where he's bad, even when he's gotten what he wants, he's gotten twists, he's gotten a chance to have input. I think all of that combined means they just know eventually you have to move on from him. I'll also just throw this in there. He did have a massive contract, so you're not going to be able to shed that. No one's going to take that off your hands right now for this player, and there aren't a lot of sort of suitors that would come and try and trade for him. If you bench him at this point, you are probably benching him, and he's probably just sitting on a bench, or he's going to have to leave and go to like a tier 2 team. I don't think there's any big squads. So sadly on the Yekindar one, I do actually think for him it is literally fuck or walk now, and sadly for him I think it's going to be walk. It's just the way it's been. I'll even say, if you ever go back, I tried watching some POVs of his not that long ago. The saddest thing is this. This is why when you're the best at that style he was really good at in 2022, it's really hard if you drop off even 10%, because the difference in the margins of those fights is so slim anyway. Like if you ever watch now, I even see rounds where he does sometimes do like a rollback, insane first kill, get like some mad duel, but then he it's like his brain really does think he rolled back the years. He's in 22. He'll just then instantly push and die immediately. Like he'll never make value out of it. Now here's the thing, in 2022 or in Virtus Pro, that was sick because he used to do the push and get like a 3k and just like win half the round for you. He isn't that player at the moment, so I actually feel like in a weird way he's trying to replicate what he did before, but it just doesn't work. I mean in CS2 he's just never been that guy. Then if you go to the others, right, I actually think the overcorrection on Ultimate's gone too far the other way. Like now everyone is like, yeah, actually, why do we want to just fire this guy? It's like, no, he's only played like fucking like, hasn't he played like 6 lands or something? Like, guy, like, look, he was so good at the beginning. You go, let's not get too crazy like I did, but there's potential here. Then when they do badly, by the way, at the lands he's doing badly, he is playing all the top 10 teams, you know. He's not getting to play some shit and no-name team and farm them. He has to play like Vitality or Spirit or FaZe or Narvis. These are the best teams in the world. Understandably, when they look here on you and their coach and their IGL go in on you, and especially, I mean, we talked about this many times on this show, some of the things he was doing, like when he would push up on CT side on Anubis, that was obviously going to get flagged eventually. It just wasn't early on because nobody had Liquid on their radar. Nobody had this guy on their radar. And also you don't associate Liquid back then with Anubis. It's just a map that like not very many teams even like to play. So sadly, I do think Ultimate has been figured out. But the difference with him is he hasn't played 2 years of shit CS like at Yekindar. I can give Ultimate a few more months. And by the way, here's another angle. What if your Kindar gets changed? I would gamble on the new lineup with Ultimate, give him another chance. So I think that one's harsh, but he has played poorly. And by the way, if your aggro rifler and your AWPer play like shit, you're not going to win many tournaments. You're not going to make any playoff runs. Like those are fucking very important spots. Then lastly, what I would say is this. I actually think, to bring it all the way back to the beginning, just Liquid in general, Mnmzzz, are actually underwhelming. I've made this point to people, right? What makes them so brutal is they're never getting rocked in these games. Like, anyone who's seen them play Na'Vi knows they could literally have beaten Na'Vi something like 4 times in a row. Instead, they beat them the first 2 times, and every other time they lose incredibly close. If they play a FaZe or a Vitality or G2, I guarantee they're going to have at least one map that they could win. They might even win a map, but they will always let you down and lose that third map. Every time. Doesn't matter who the opponent is, what the map. So unfortunately for me, like, that is actually the worst spot to be in with a team, because you'll think you're getting false hope, like, we could win these. But unfortunately, the one consistent note about Liquid is they are in position to win, but at the moment they don't beat any top team. It's actually one
and
that...
a big part of
go on.
Yeah, and a big part of that is just, it's like, I feel like NAF and Twist are back in their prime again. Like, I feel
they're
like
really good.
And the fact that we're just wasting their prime with a player like Yakinder, who, as an aggro rifler, isn't delivering. Like you said, I think I did have some criticism for Ultimate. I would never get rid of him, though, this early, because we've seen that he does have capability for good performances. And finding a tier 1 opper is so hard right now. I keep gambling on him. But when both of the tires are flat in the car of our aggro rifler and opper, it's like, what the hell are we? What the hell are we going to be able to accomplish in the circumstances? And you kind of have to wonder now with like Yakinder. I do think he will be fired if they don't make a deep run at this major or anything of significance, because he's almost had like this survivorship bias, I feel like, on these Liquid rosters. When he first joined the team, obviously Nitro had to go then, so no one was looking at him too closely. On the European roster, even though he had an atrocious IGL performance with Patsy and Rainmaker, you're like, they have to go. Like, it's these guys are not working, so no one's gonna think about getting rid of Yakinder. On the next addition to the roster, Cadian and Skulls, they have to go. So no one's like, we're not going to cut 3 players and lose our spots at the lose our spots, our ranking points, all that. But I think now we're finally at a point where NAF is doing great, Twist is doing great. I think JKS is doing his roles. I don't see a big issue there. I think it's too early to cut Ultimate. He's the obvious piece that has to go into an upgrade, and it might be good for him to go back to the CIS Eastern European scene. Liquid, like you said, I don't think Liquid would ever sell him. They'll keep him on the bench for a long time until someone's willing to come with the money and gamble on him coming back to his old form. But it's clear something's not working here. Like, Liquid, it's been 5-6 years since Liquid have taken their last big LAN trophy in CS, and I don't think that's really acceptable, especially with the other quality of the players they have in this roster. Like, something's got to give eventually at this Liquid organization and start making start considering changing this player out, because it's clear that in every role he has been, we've been getting diminishing returns from, especially in international competition. The only team they consistently beat is Complexity, and that's not exactly like a huge achievement right now. So,
by the way, I can also tell you, because TL is one of the orgs I have like some my little birds in, that I can also tell you, even though they have given him, like you said, every possible chance, because they like him, they don't want to have to fire him. Don't worry though, they're not idiots. Like, they're not just going to ride with this guy for 5 years, by the way, and just ruin the whole. They understand, like, eventually it'll get too much, and even though they want him to, they will fire him if he doesn't do a good job, in my opinion. By the way, on that whole thing also, where you were like saying about fucking honeymoon or whatever, there's no fucking honeymoon for your Kindar. If anything, this is like where you used to have an amazing marriage. Now you have a completely loveless, dead sex.
This is like we had. This is like I was completely off base here. This is like they had. We're married. The honeymoon's going great. Yeah. Then we're like, we're 6 months in. The thrill is gone. We're gonna take some time apart to see what's going on.
We want to be together. We want to go to couples.
We want to be together, but it's
just not working. The magic's gone. Yeah.
You sleep in the guest bedroom, I sleep in the main bedroom, and then we get back together, but then you sleep on the couch, and now he's sleeping in the dog house, and now your Kinder's sleeping in the dog house. Like, from here, it's off of the property line. Like,
and by the way, I'll just for the millionth time mention it, because I'm always going to mention it when you do something, like when you're JDM and you're like, look how I sit. That's only cool when you're sick. When you sit like that at the monitor, here's the thing people don't get. I bet you know that. I bet you have the same vibe, Maui. When the Akindar was insane in VP, it actually made it seem like secret tech that he looked that close to him. Maybe that lets him see a flick, because he's doing like an angle dodge onto someone to take a duel. Maybe that let him see him a second earlier. When you're shit, though, it just becomes silly. Like, at that point, everyone just goes, why don't you just move the normal distance away, you know, and, like, use a normal mouse or something, you know, like, come on.
There is yeah, I mean, I do agree. It looks a little ridiculous. It's like if chewing gum made you worse at CS, but one guy was able to make it happen. Like, it would look sick. It would look badass, I'm not going to lie. But it's like, there was like I mean, you could just do this yourself at home. If you're doing like a reaction time test and you sit really far away and you try to do it, you're gonna just have slower reactions than if you do put your face really close.
Okay.
Like you'll see you have a, I don't know, tens of milliseconds improvement in reaction time. So there is like some sort of science to that. It's not even really science, it's just you could just do it yourself. But I guess that is how science actually works.
You could do it yourself, yeah.
Yeah. So but with Yukindar and sitting that close, it is quite comical because he actually has to turn his head a little bit to look at the radar.
That is wild,
and then he has
isn't it?
to look back. Like, I can see in my peripheral vision what my radar is practically at all times. Sure, I have to like look a little bit with my eyes, but I don't have to actually like turn. So
that reminds me, by the way,
like,
there's one other thing about Yukindar. Look, this is an obvious angle from the outside, but I can confirm inside people agree with this topic, which is they also do agree that he's one of those victims of becoming an IGL when he used to be like a star rifler, basically. Like, the problem there, I can tell you, the best example ever, because I've talked to him quite a lot about it, was actually Shocks. He will totally tell you the reason why he wasn't as good anymore is because when you really are just that star rifler, like we're saying in this analogy, look at the monitor, all you're doing is actually looking like edge detection for a movement, and you're going to shoot someone. That's all your brain's focused on. But when you IGL, you are just thinking about what's he doing and who's backing me up and what's he doing. And unfortunately, people tell me when you turn that on and you do it for like you can't turn it off. You can't just go, right, forget all that. No, now I'm just the guy watching the crosshair again. It's really hard to do that, unfortunately. If you notice, not a lot of people who fail the IGL swap like that make it back. It's not that often they do. So unfortunately, it sounds to me like he's a victim of that, unfortunately. Right, what is your good point, Maui?
Bad point.
Bad point. Yeah, bad point.
Let me. This is a rare time. I didn't just have
MOUZ Sports.
Open. Okay, yeah.
MOUZ technically now.
Oh yeah. So
we don't call them that anymore. They don't go by that name anymore.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunate. Okay, I'll just put it like this: with all the rumors that are circulating around MOUZ and how the team seems to be soon to be torn asunder, I feel like it's pretty obvious that there is a very short life expectancy left on this team, and if they don't get their shit together, they're just obviously not going to stay together as a 5-man unit. There's rumors right now that multiple of their players are being approached by other tier 1 organizations, and that they likely will be headed into other directions. I'm not going to give any further details about that because I'm not certain of the details, nor do I want to be someone that's a leaker. I'm not a leaker. But I think that one thing that would keep this team together, if there is still any chance at all, is proof of concept in winning on a big stage. And I feel like the Blast World Finals was their last chance. I know that some people might say right now, oh, what about the RMR? What about the Major? If you're telling me right now that they were able to play well at Rio in front of a hostile crowd against Furia, who's a team that's clearly worse than them, that's impressive. If they were able to beat Vitality on the quarterfinal stage, that's impressive. Losing in the grand finals to Navi, that needed to be something that they built off of going into the World Finals, which actually had a crowd that on the day that they played Vitality, I think the crowd in Singapore was probably louder than what they played in the quarterfinals against Vitality because my Brazilian crowd not playing with my Brazilian teams. So I do feel like MOUZ have missed that window of opportunity. They lost in the quarterfinals to a Vitality team that was playing with Jax, who was clearly weaker, by the way. Like, that was a clearly weaker version of Vitality than I had seen in the past when they had Mnmzzz, who fit much more adequately in the role. And now, if you're going to tell me that for whatever reason MOUZ are going to get it together for the Major and the playoffs of the Major in what they probably recognize themselves is their own last dance, I am going to tell you you're absolutely crazy, and that's not going to happen. And at this point, MOUZ didn't get it together, and that's my bad point. MOUZ have failed to win a true S-tier arena trophy in the time that they had with this roster, which I so highly touted. And I still hold out in a lot of ways that if they put it together, they would have been on the precipice of having one of the best teams and perhaps most dominant runs for quite some time, because it feels like I see flaws with every other team. But for whatever reason, what it is with MOUZ is that when they play with a modicum of pressure, they crumble, and multiple players on their team will suddenly just play 70% as good as they are capable of doing. And I'm even being generous there, because people like Yimpad and Exertion now have proven to me repeatedly that they are unable to show any sense of what they have in a group stage in a playoff match, which is so disappointing, obviously. And so this was not a good time for MOUZ this was not a good time for Torzy to have his worst event of the year, because this felt like you needed to build off of what Rio showed you were capable of in front of an arena. And so, yeah, unfortunately, Torzy has Torzy gets a lot of flack, and this is the one time where it was deserved for this tournament. But for most of the year, it's actually been his riflers who have let him down in these big stage games. So, yeah, the bad point is simply MOUZ didn't get there. And this is almost like a swan song for them now, for me.
Go on, where you going, mate?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It's hard because you're completely right. This is a team where it's like every single piece, from the IJL to the Opera to the rifling core to the to the coacher. Like, this team could have been a tier 1 championship title contender, and they just didn't really make it to that to that finish line. And there's a lot of teams. I mean, there's previous iterations of MOUZ that are that have been exactly like this, and I think I can't dispute the point at all that they've come so close and they've just missed the mark every single time. And I don't think they'll do anything at the major, especially knowing that they know changes are going to be coming to lineup, that they know they didn't overcome their mental issues, that they can't go and say, well, we fixed our issue, let's have one last good ride. They're like, the issue still exists. So, and the team's going to be definitely pulled apart in 2025. It's effectively over for this iteration of MOUZ Sports. They're gonna have to go back to the well and probably try with 2 or 3 new academy players next year, and that's just kind of the reality of being the MOUZ Sports organization.
Yeah, I will say on this one, this is why I told people, like, I think it was even one of my takes on a past episode, not only will this be their last season, like this major is basically do or die, and spoiler right now, it doesn't look like they're going to win it, but beyond that even, it's going to be the last anyway, just because this is where fans will always misunderstand. I actually do believe all that MOUZ Sports shit. Like, they do look like they get along very well. They look like they all are of a similar mind. And so, but that doesn't matter when it comes to things like someone being able to pay you twice as much salary, someone being able to put you next to one of those HLTV top 3 or 4 players in the world. Basically, by the way, it's the reason why everyone has done that jump from MOUZ to FaZe. Every single time it happened, if you remember, MOUZ was usually a comparable team to FaZe at the time. It wasn't that far off. But the difference is the perception if you go to a FaZe or a Vitality G2 is you will win tournaments. In MOUZ, that's not guaranteed. Even if with this lineup, it's not guaranteed. And so unfortunately, for every reason, you don't stay if you're the big name. Yimfat, Exertion are the obvious ones, but Shuhei as well could easily go. I think for people like Torji and Broland, this might be the place they stay and they get built around again. They're not as obvious people to pick up elsewhere. But look, if you've got 3 major pieces that are almost certainly, remember as well, as soon as one goes, why don't the other 2 go? You know what I mean? That's the sort of thing where if you stay, it has to be like what Ents could have done. You all have to agree to stay. Like, it can't just be like some players from Nut stay. It has to be like Snappy staying. In fact, the whole lineup staying and the coaches staying and Saw staying. So for me, I do think it's obvious is the last one. And the sad thing is, I see why he picked it as the bad point. They're not going to get there. As of right now, I could actually, for real, bet that they won't win the major. Because what this team has shown me, unfortunately, is almost every time it is the match. The one that if they win will get them the status they deserve. They don't win it. That's why the only time they even beat opponents of that level were the smaller lands. So even though they beat the right team, it wasn't the right setting, wasn't the right stage, wasn't the right venue. So unfortunately, this is a team where, like, essentially they're almost like the playoff version of what I just said about Liquid. They're always getting in these games. They're always so close. They always think before the game, hey, it's possible they could win this one. But this is the team, like with the exception actually of that Rio event recently. You just know they'll lose the semi against anyone that's good. Any top team, they're not going to do the big upset and pull it off against like G2 in the big semi-final. They're going to lose to a G2 in the semi-final, and they're even going to do it where it's like, oh, we were close, we were map 1, and it's like, which is like the refrain of the loser, by the way. Like, you don't give a fuck. At the end of the day, it's only winning the match that you care about. You don't even care if you win your map. You just want to win the series. And then I will say also, the last thing, which is a bomber to me, is the other reason why I don't think they'll ever get over the hump is I actually do think they have too few veteran players. Like, their veteran is Brolan. Like, remember, he himself is inexperienced. Like, he still hasn't been through all the fucking possible scenarios of what it's like to be up a map, down a map, in the big game, call a time. He's still learning on the job himself. So I think when you add it all together, in isolation, each player could all play for a top 5 team. I mean, the joke is they are a top 5 team themselves. But I do think, like, the blend wasn't perfect in that sense. I do think people ignore that, like, when you look at some of the other teams, like, when everyone compares this team to Astralis or TSM got like 2 or 3 years to get to the top. This team had to do it within this year. And that's not the economics of the industry anymore. You're not going to get 3 years. So unfortunately, this MOUZ lineup probably never going to go further than they have now. You win small events, but I would say the limit for them is probably semis at the major. And by the way, semis at the major is not going to keep everyone together. So I agree. I agree also that's a bad point, by the way. One, it's just a bomber because like the aforementioned TSM Astralis, you can see the potential. This team, by the way, really could have won every single event this year. They could have won the major. They could have won Cologne. They didn't because they always fail in the big moment. And then sadly, I also do think the bomber is, if this was like traditional sports, what we would say is, you one piece away. You know, next year, everyone proves you won't get it next year. It's not the CS economy right now. And so I think for next year, I could see almost the whole team being strip mined out. It just looks like it's plausible.
And I think that's fine. I mean, I think that's fine.
Yeah, it's all good.
I'm not.
By the way, in some ways, as much as I'll be sad when this lineup dies, it will also make all those other teams better. Like, who wouldn't like to see FaZe with like Exertion or something? It'd be dynamite, right? Could be awesome.
And the TSM Astralis comparison is apt in some ways, but it is worth noting that like when that roster did form, they did have older pieces there. They did have an older coach. They did have some older pieces,
sure.
And it was the gradual move. It was the gradual change of Kerrigan for a young IGL, bring in Magic's Boy, bring in Kierbai at times that eventually did allow them to succeed. So it was a mix of old and new pieces that have been there since the start, pieces that had just started at 2016, 2017 with like teams like Dignitas. Whereas this team, they've been the core of this team's been under the same leader for their entire relevant careers. They've always been under Shuhei, even on MOUZ NXT. So it could also just be the reason the team isn't getting over the hump is there's not new ideas coming to the roster. There's no metamorphosis. There's no transformation. Even though we're all gradually getting better as a team, there's no one challenging our preconceived notions of how to play the game and our preconceived like mental hangups. I mean, if your IGL has been working with the same players for years and you guys all kind of believe, we all believe we could win the title, but we never get over the hump, you're going to start believing we can't get over this hump. It's just a natural fact. And I don't think a coach like Cyclone, who also came up in the system with them, would be able to break through this sort of mental block. It's clearly mental that they're not.
Oh,
these
for
players
sure.
are good enough to win trophies. There's no one in this lineup that can break that mental block. The only place the players can go to break the mental block is to a different team under a different coach, under a different IGL. And that's simply what needs to happen. It's happened to other teams, and it's going to happen to this team.
Like, by the way, here's my prediction. This team will just be thought of in the future as a what-if team. Like, what if they had got it together? What if they had... But that's a sad thing. It'll just be that refrain, which is also why they should break up now. They've had enough time. By the way, to go to my bad point... I am going to pick for my bad point. It's actually going to be a little bit counterintuitive, but believe it or not, normally I don't overreact to single tournament results. Single tournament results are one thing on it, but I think if you look at the last like 2 or 3 events, I think you have started to see some cracks in NAVI, and I think NAVI is heading into this RMR/major with some danger signs. Like, this is like ominous shit, because it's one thing, right? Look, I can easily look and go, they were in every final. I'm sure they're a bit burned out, By the way, everyone's been prepper for them. This is easily not only the most watched, but the most studied team in Counter-Strike. And also, now we know all their players, we know the maps they're going to... Right? There's a million factors you can give, but the point is, if you look in the history of Counter-Strike, having your big, like, blip right before the major is a really bad sign. That is really fucking bad. Like, it's already dodgy enough when you're on a hype, a peak, and you go into the major and then you can underwhelm. In this kind of setting, if you start slow in that, I mean, I'm assuming you'll get through the RMR, but if you start slow at the major, every team there's got in for you, remember? You're the ultimate scalp to take. You can even argue, by the way, you're actually, in some ways, a less intimidating scalp. Like, if I play Vitality, I know if Siwu plays too well, I'll probably lose. If I play Spirit, Donk might just clap. You don't have that feeling with Na'Vi. You might lose to Na'Vi the team. You might lose on the map. You might lose to Blade. You might lose to God. But you always feel like it's possible. You could win in this. So I think everyone's going to be gunning so hard for this team. And I do worry that it's not just this last event. Even though they won Rio with a few slips. There was some moments there that were looking, hey, I don't know about this. And they could have gone out in the semis. Like, there was a bunch of things could have gone fucking pear-shaped in that one. Obviously, they did lose the Blast one to G2 and kind of like, I wouldn't say they got clapped. It was a close series, but they got convincingly beaten. So I think right now, the thing I worry about is this. There are very few teams really are the number one team for like 8 months in a row. Those are like the best teams to ever play CS, guys. So believe it or not, this team's already had quite a lot of months as the number one team. It's good, like what, like a sort of 4 or 5 months at this point? Like, I don't know, like that doesn't last forever. So I'm not saying they will do badly, but I do think this is a danger moment for Na'Vi. So what do you think? What are you thinking of Na'Vi?
I could take it first.
Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like I'll address 2 things here. The first that you brought up is that before getting to Na'Vi, I feel like with the single tournament analysis, it's something where I've actually kind of had to sort of shift my perspective back and forth a little bit, because when I was coming into the space, I felt like I took the whole of the calendar and sort of graded a team's year kind of on how well they did in it. And what I mean by that is that like trophies aren't as sacred in Counter-Strike as they are in a couple other sports or esports, because we have over a dozen events in our tournament year calendar. And with how packed it is, and honestly how poor formats can be and lead to such crazy amounts of variance, it may sound like a tired and bitter angle, but it is likely that if you are a top 7 team in the world throughout the entire year, you probably won at least 1 trophy. So that to me is why flukes in either direction, wins and losses, I more so try to think about the totality of like the last 3 months of a team or 6 months of a team, or even at the end of the year, I just flat out grade how was their year this year? How do they stack up in the teams this year? And for Na'Vi, I will say that I don't think like that. Yeah, that's why I don't actually sound the alarm bells, because this is the fluke. This is the fluke in the opposite direction for me. So I actually I would go against this, and I would say that to me, Na'Vi still stylistically, strategically, they are the top team in the world for me, regardless of the result here, where this kind of was the perfect storm of individuals not showing up for me at the World Finals. Like, I do think that what is a bit poor for them is that people have been studying them to such a strong degree, and they got surprised. Like, they got surprised by an Astralis team. Like, that's why I'm not ringing the alarm bells. They got beaten by an Astralis team who went for a surprise pick on a map that they had never played before. And then they also, to their credit, they beat Na'Vi on Mirage, which is obviously very hard. Not a lot of teams can say that they did that this year. But if you get enough cracks at Na'Vi, you might be able to do that eventually. And on top of that, if you're studying Na'Vi to the degree that everybody is right now, it is a bit tougher. I'm not super concerned because, for my money, they still have the best coach in the game. He's the only coach that I would put in an S tier right now. And I feel like everybody's playing catch up to how well Blade is constructing rounds for Na'Vi, how fluid they are in those kinds of moments. If I'm going to raise any sort of orange flag at all, because I couldn't go for a red one here, I would say that where Na'Vi showed a lot of form is once they were playing under Blade's system for 3-4 months, and then they really started to pick up that speed and then show consistency. But if Blade himself actually wavers in his own confidence with his roster and the structure that he's put together, he might change too much. And I think that's the one worrying idea I have, where Blade might come into the RMR major and say, teams have studied us way too much at this point. We need to change too much. And frankly, I have a lot of respect for the players on his teams once they are acquainted with the system. But if they're learning live through the RMR and major a new style that Blade has now crafted, then I'm not sure I believe in the intuition of people like Ema and JL in that system, because we obviously saw that it took them a little while to become world-class players under the Na'Vi banner.
I do think like I would raise even less of an orange. I'd raise like a yellow flag or like a magenta flag or something, because I do think to an extent the Singapore result was an aberration. The Astralis roster they lost to 2-0 is still effectively a new roster, even though we can say, oh, there's some, pre-built knowledge from Katie and working with Stound and Gabby. It is a new team with an IGL with a broken arm. They've only played their second LAN. Now they're blown out at the Blast Fall Finals with no practice. So this is the first time we've seen Astralis really, practiced and trying to build up their system under their new leadership. So it kind of makes me, it makes me believe that that loss just comes down to a lack of, tape, a lack of demos, lack of insight into what form this new team would take with, device off of the IGL, focusing purely on opping. And like Alex said, the win against Navi and Mirage is a pretty strong result. If they stay confident, I don't have serious concerns about their result. I don't know if they have what it takes to win the major, but I feel pretty confident in them making a top 8 finish because
Astralis is the
overall. Pardon?
Astralis, yeah, you mean?
No, hell no.
You're talking about Navi?
Yeah.
All right,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Astralis.
Okay.
I mean, come on, like he broke his freaking arm. Like, no. I do think so. No, okay. So Astralis beating Navi, I don't think is a symbol of anything because it's a relatively new roster. I think it's a blip, and having to face FaZe in your elimination match in the group stage is going to be tough on any day. And I don't think the fact that that's not something that's going to happen at the major. Navi will have a period to gradually ramp up against weaker teams in the earlier stages of the major before having to face a team like FaZe. Having to face them that early and then taking a map and then losing a close 2-win series ultimately points to me that I don't think anything's particularly going wrong within the Navi camp right now, as long as they stay the course. And like Maui said, they don't freak out and try to change too much before heading to Shanghai.
I'll give you an angle, because the thing is, I always told people when they had that map streak of like the 12 wins or whatever on Mirage, I always said, if you ever went and looked though, it wasn't like a scenario where like when we played, they relied on that. Like they used to go to 3 maps even with loads of teams. If you don't know, they've lost 4 of their last 5 Mirage. 2 of them were at this Blast, and they went 1 and 2 at fucking IM Rio, and here's the teams they lost to. They lost to Fury and MOUZ at Rio. Right, MOUZ is a good team on that map, but even they weren't in great form at the time. And then Astralis and FaZe aren't even top teams right now. So I do think that's a worry, because to me, that was a home map that did so much heavy lifting. And then lastly, I'll just say, the reason why I also worry about Navi is because they don't have the Donk, Ziwu, MonteCristo guy who can just go, right, it's okay, I'm going to win this game anyway. They don't have that guy in this team. They do rely on the whole team being pretty good and on the same page, which, look, they've done it more than anyone else this year. So that's why I say it's not the case that like they're definitely going to fail, but it's just one of those times where if something goes bad at the major, come back to this video, I planted all the seeds here. It was plausible that it could happen. Because to me, going into the major, they are the number 1 favourite to win it. Like everyone on paper, you have to pick them. On paper, it looks like they should be like a lock for like semis at a minimum, but I get scared they're going to go out in like the round of 8 or something. This is what I'm worried about. So we'll see. We'll see. Right. Okay. What is your ugly point, Mnmzzz?
It's a little, I will admit, at the offset, this is a little bit self-serving in a way.
That's what the show's all about. Don't worry about it. That's what the show's all about.
Yeah, it's self-serving, make our own arguments, boost our own reputation,
Absolutely.
A little bit of that. So my ugly point for this episode is that I feel like this year, especially, we've seen a decline in the overall presence of like local domestic CS esports journalism. Now, of course, the self-serving part is that, we recently had our layoffs at Dust 2, which will affect, our operations moving into next year. But on at a more macro point, just alone this year, we've seen Frag Leader, which was the Portuguese CS website that's been around since 1999.
Sure.
They went out of business after 20 years.
Right.
We saw Dust 2 Sweden go out of business. They were, our sister site covering the Swedish scene. We saw Blix, which was a CS vertical, go out of business. We saw 99 Damage, the German website that's been covering since, the 1.6, they stopped their news section. Here's the Thing News, which is on Australian, which is the only publication that covers Australia. They went out of business.
Sounds like I should have sued them for copyright anyway. That's my fucking slogan in it. Here's the thing.
Here's the thing. Yeah.
Oh, it's here's the joke. There you go. Well, the joke is
here's the
I do
joke.
say here's the thing as well. That's true.
The joke is.
There you go.
You need to do the Richard tactic where you put a little sticky note above the monitor that says, if you ever see the word here, you have to like get the wide eyes and like I won't say it again. And then CS:GO to Asia, they're not resuming their operations. They finally closed their shop after. So in this year alone, we've seen 6 or 7 CS publications all shut down, and I feel like they, particularly most of them, weren't covering like the global scene. They were covering their own local scene, and for one, that's obviously just bad because people are losing their jobs. Nothing to say. I like having a job personally, but on a more, on a more like story level, we're losing insight into teams earlier in their days that, teams can use to build, that casters can use to make storylines, that historians can use to sort of learn more about players that are coming up. For Fraglator, for example, they were the ones covering the Saw players during their early days
All right.
before they came into scene. Organization like Dust 2 SE was covering the Swedish players that should hopefully eventually come up in the Swedish scene, or CS:GO 2 Asia. We don't have a domestic Asian publication that's covering the rise of a team like Mongols that is able to go and get those interviews in Mongolian with those players. And I think that's just going to hurt the overall like quality, the richness of the scene, the richness of storytelling, the richness of of overall just the fullness of the scene, or even from an accountability standpoint. Like a publication, these smaller publications are usually able to like target cheating, or target match fixing, or target orgs being scummy at the local level that
Oh, for
maybe a
sure.
publication like HLTV won't cover. So I just see there being a lot of downsides to this recent trend of older legacy like domestic CS publications shutting down.
I mean, I feel like operation costs of these websites is probably what did them in. Kind of just kind of roughly knowing like what people at Dust 2 were getting paid. I feel like it was kind of hard to justify some of that stuff. I will say first and foremost, it is obviously ugly because I appreciate the quality of work that came out of Dust 2 US especially. Like when you would go to Fragadelphia's and you would go to other sort of local lands and talk to I listened to a lot of those, by the way, like a lot of the Dust 2 YouTube just little short interviews with different players, because I would be curious what's going on in the ECL level in North America. Not even for like prep reasons. Like I'm not even watching these teams really, but I just want to hear about these stories and find out almost if there's any good personalities in that space, because uh yeah, I'm just curious. Like, I hear those names all the time. I want to know if I can put a face to the name or the stats. So I feel like there's been like a weird, like the market correction for esports it feels like it kind of lagged here, because it feels like we got that in a couple other aspects, but then it took a while for this journalism side to the Better Collective to recognize what was going on in terms of I don't know if I want to say hemorrhaging, but the bleeding of cash. And all in all, I do think that there is a lot that can rise up from the ashes of these depleted and now defunct programs, but it's going to be off the back of people really sticking themselves out there in ways that are obviously not in the long term financially viable. But that's kind of what helped people like Ryan in the first place get popular, the fact that he did his own blog and everything. I would obviously wish that you guys get paid and soon, and I would say as a outright statement, I would vouch for the work that Mnmzzz does, because I feel like you've been putting out a ton of great content and in terms of interviews and capturing the soul of the North American space. I can't really I can't really name too many other people other than you that put in this much work into it. So I hope first, well, beyond that, like you land on your feet in a job that does pay you for your efforts. But I just also think like it felt like there was bloat, but I think the main thing, my concern with what Better Collective did is that they just cut it all off instead of some sort of more reasonable stemming of allocated funds. I feel like that is where I was just like, what the hell? Like everybody's laid off. That felt like too far to me. I feel like there's some way to salvage what happened there. And I don't necessarily I'm not even gonna really comment on like Ryan's style, which I'm sure Thorin would have a lot of ideas. A lot of people have a lot of ideas about how Ryan conducts himself online, but it drove clicks. And I don't think that for a journalism website, you should be always click forward engagement baiting, but it is also sort of my calling card, and it's kind of what has made me popular too. So I see the value in it. So I'm not entirely opposed to it. It's just like win is too much, and obviously people have different lines that they draw for those kinds of things. So I would just say all in all right now for domestic Counter-Strike, I feel like this is sort of the symptom also of what we've been warning people about for such a long time, ever since ESL Pro League left North America, that if we're going to make a Eurocentric game, then we're going to have a Eurocentric ecosystem. And what's the purpose if 99% of Counter-Strike fans, esports fans, only care about the top 15 teams, if even that? I would even say the top 8 teams in the world. And what's going to happen if we move them all to Europe? They're playing all European events, and this space is almost just being entirely dominated by Europe. Like this is what happens. Like people care less and less and less about these North American teams, even though there's some good stories right now in the Americas regions. Like the Brazilian scene right now is incredibly strong. I don't think Dust2 I don't think Dust2 BR still exists though.
They do. They were saved from layoffs.
Yeah, so Dust2 BR still exists, but that's one of that.
Do they get the most views? Is it implied they get the most views or something? Is that why they're safe?
Well, the operation costs are low too.
Well,
right, that's true.
Well, so operation obviously they're paid less because they're from Brazil, but the big thing too is liberal betting laws. They can be
I see.
Without putting too fine a point,
Right.
they can be sponsored by betting companies, whereas an American website can't. Same with Dust2 India, they can be sponsored by 1xBet, but we can't.
Okay. Well, that sucks actually, because that's obviously a great revenue stream. And that's the thing. Like, I mean, that's another point for another time. I feel like I said enough here. I could come back to this actually.
I would just say, first of all, actually, these sorts of sites, like regional sites, they aren't just like cool. They're essential to understanding the scene. Because I will always tell someone this, right? There's actually an example where it sounds like I'm being arrogant, but I'm actually just being rational. I always say to people, I think I know more about the history of Counter-Strike than anyone else. Now, an idiot then thinks I'm saying I know everything and I know what everyone else thinks. No, there's a very key distinction there. What I know like, for example, I know loads of history stuff that Get Right doesn't, but I'm sure Get Right knows things about his teams that I don't. And if you understand that premise, that's why we need to have regional scenes. Because even if like the best journalists on the biggest sites know a lot of the big picture things or the really important things, they are never going to have that insane horizontal, vertical like depth of how far down the scene they can go. Because if people don't know, the best example of this is actually the French Counter-Strike scene. I've always told people, no matter what I might think about some of the journalists in the French scene, those interviews they do, especially on like 1PV or whatever, that one that Nell does, and the Vacarms, like the ones where they take it and they'll often even do a translated version, those are like the most insane forever, like Joe Rogan podcast or like Drink Champs for CS, if you don't know. They will talk about every drama, every reason someone was kicked or joined or what went wrong. And for real, I told Maui, the joke is they almost do it like they think no one can translate French, because they almost do it like, don't tell anyone this. It's like, we're all listening to it. It's all straight fight. So, but the point is, that's the sort of thing where like, if I'm friends with like Apex, maybe I'll get a few of those details, but it's not the same. What you need to get that kind of an interview is the person has to be from your scene. They have to know everyone in the scene. They have to know you. And then also, because they know you, spoiler, those are all basically half pre-interviews. What you do is before you do the interview, you say to the guy that you know, like, hey, we want to talk about these things, and can you talk about that player? And then once you get the okay, then the floodgates are open and you can do it. You can't do that. If Mnmzzz goes to an event now and he takes a player, like a great example would be like Mongols, they're just a new hot team, right? If he takes that player to one side and goes, and what about in your scene? I heard there was some drama with this player. Then the likelihood that guy speaks on that topic is almost non-existent.
Well, first they'll say, sorry, we don't speak English, and then,
Yeah, and then also they're going to think things like, what can I say to an audience? Like, is this people from my place? They're not going to also notice you assume that you know the space already. They're not going to know that you might know. Because here's the other thing as well, Mnmzzz. It's actually one of the secrets I've used in my career. If you notice, my style of interview is either someone, again, that I know so I can set them up very well, or it's someone often, some of the best ones of mine are ones where I've had a contentious analyst persona relationship, right? So what I'm basically doing there is I'm almost challenging the person. Well, tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me what the real situation is. That's like my proxy to make up for the fact that like, I don't have this, I can't be in every scene and know every person. I know the bigger picture and the very broad strokes. So no, I do think those are essential. As I say, certain scenes, that's where I get the info from. Also, by the way, even beyond just like interesting trivia and roster moves. By the way, if you just want to use the Dust2 US example, Dust2 US this year absolutely broke one of the biggest and most important stories in Counter-Strike esports. They're the ones who broke it and did all the updates, the one with Maniac and the sexual assault allegations. Like, they were all over that stuff. You had like brief things on other sites. So you had like like an illusion here or just a copy of a press cut. They had loads of the background info. They had the information put together. They had it presented in a timely fashion at exactly the moment when it had probably the biggest impact. That alone is important. If we didn't have that site, that story would not have been broken in that same way. By the way, not least because some of the people in the scene it was almost like a conflict of interest. Some people were in a position where they couldn't speak on that in the same way. So actually, we also need people who don't have the same connections always to be able to out some of these stories. It's like I always say about tournament organisers. The perfect person to actually call out a bad tournament organiser is the people who don't work for that tournament organiser. The guy who works for them can't really do it. He's going to be putting himself in a tough spot. So I think already there's been not only minor details, there's even been major impacts that are significant. And also, as Mnmzzz says, for somehow, even though you can obviously pray Richard Lewis comes along like the fucking Punisher and saves you, most of the time you actually do rely upon local scenes to break corruption because they're the ones who know things like this is a dodgy sponsor or that guy in the scene has money but he hasn't paid his stuff. That's the sort of thing that locally always comes up before it ever breaks out into the wider space. And I do think if you look in history, there have been loads of stories from CIS region, Brazil, fucking all sorts of places where that's come out of like this person's dodgy or they're not paying people. That always starts at a grassroots level, in my opinion. It only gets to the biggest level if it is a story that can carry around the whole world and everyone cares about. So I think that's also really important. I think without that, the question now becomes not, did this person do something dodgy and can they be exposed? It becomes, unfortunately, this is where media can be a bit cancerous, unfortunately. It becomes a question of, is this actually worth HLTV writing on their website? If it isn't, if it's just some local guy being corrupt, that might not make the front page of their website. And if it doesn't make the front page of their website, essentially to the rest of us, it doesn't exist. So I actually do think it's really important we have these sites. Yeah, and then lastly, I'll just say, maybe this is a topic you can throw back to you, Mnmzzz, you can give some thoughts on this. I also do think the sort of financial incentives / media landscape is just in an incredibly fucked place at the moment. It's like a no man's land full of mines at this point in time because, put it this way, the worst ever canary in the coal mine warning was when Richard Lewis willingly left Deserto. If people don't know, they would have kept him on at Deserto because he was adding a lot of like status to their website. That's the site that Richard Lewis writes for and bricks all the stories. But he even realised himself eventually, basically, because I'm Richard Lewis, I can demand like a good salary. I'm just basically tanking your business by you employing me. Like you'll never make money back off what I'm doing. Well, bro, if Richard Lewis can't get it, how's a normal person going to make a living doing that? Because the problem with the industry currently is much like teams where no matter how good the player is, he never actually recoups the money it costs to pay him. It's like that with journalism and media. Unfortunately, you're taking the investment, you're taking the money and you have sponsors and stuff. But most people, what they do, unfortunately, can't generate back revenue that makes them justify doing it. It's why Maui was sort of alluding to there. In a way, that one of the cynical paths a lot of journalists probably do have to take is probably try and brand yourself or be a guy who does a unique thing or you have your own angle because that can bring attention in a different way. As he says, you can go the TMZ route. You can try and just bait people for attention or thrill people or excite them and beat up. But that's you notice as soon as you do that, you're starting to move slightly away from just traditional journalism. So it's a fraught path. You have to ask yourself, do you want to be TMZ and have a job or do you want to be a super awesome journalist and be doing a very low paying job for a small site? It's by the way, that's not a great choice to have to make. So I wonder, what do you think about that, Mnmzzz? Because obviously I haven't directly, this isn't something I've had to do with a full-time job. I've had my own brand, but what do you think are like the economics of the industry at the moment in that sense?
I mean, it goes without saying that economics of the scene are fucked because HLTV is owned by this Better Collective, which is essentially a venture capitalist, multi-website owning, sports betting, listed on, I think, the Danish stock exchange company that ultimately is responsible to its shareholders, and the interest of journalism and interest of shareholders don't generally align because obviously the shareholders want to see each of the sites in the portfolio publishing big stories that bring in big advertisers, that bring in, money, and they want to keep salaries as low as possible, keep travel expenses as low as possible, and run everything as cheaply as possible because then they have a higher chance of turning a profit. Whereas like the big thing we've always struggled with Dust to US is a lot of the stuff we're focusing on isn't things that necessarily turn, that aren't profit generators. We're, doing interviews with players that might get a couple hundred views before they become big players, or we're covering, scandals with smaller organizations. That's important to our readership. That's important to our ecosystem, but isn't important if you're trying to show it off in like a pitch deck to a sponsor. When we do have our big stories, whether it's like the Maniac story or the match fixing story or, a huge roster move, like that's what we can show off. But following like the proper journalistic method, you're not going to have those dingers like every, once a week. It's it's once every maybe couple of months, once or twice a year, where you're going to have a huge story that comes through that, you're able to put together via the grapevine. But at the same time, it probably just isn't sustainable from a business side of things. I mean, for a long time, this wasn't, my full-time job. I was doing this for 5 years at, part-time is, shoestring budget as much as possible. But being able to go full-time this year and getting a travel budget this year from our expansion was what allowed me to go do more, interviews with like local players. When Lake was being called up to M80 to be able to talk to his former teammates and ask, what do you think of him? What are his tendencies? Like, what's his character like? Talking to, MnMzzz MD before he got picked up by G2, obviously was like a big thing for us. Stories like doing interviews with players like, Steel when he's trying to start playing again, doing stuff with Nifty when he's, before he retired again, are things that I think are definitely interesting from like a historian's perspective or from a core esports fan perspective, but isn't thing that is like a profit, isn't thing that's like a profit driver.
By the way, that's even a very good point you make there. Obviously, if you have to make your money today off the hits today from the story, as you're saying, things that one day might actually increase in value. Like if someone, think about this, guys. Imagine if someone had actually had an amazing in-depth interview with Dog 2 years before he got to the top of the scene and we got to know what he was thinking, what he was playing. That would have been amazing. It wouldn't have had any value back then, by the way. No one would have known he was. But if we could go back now and watch it, that'd be straight fire. But that piece is lost to history. The value of that actually isn't in the moment of the way the industry operates. Also, by the way, Maui, unfortunately, I can tell you very cynically, the whole thing of the idea that like one day it's fine and the next day it's like everyone's fired, that's unfortunately the nature of when you have really big companies like he's saying. I would imagine if you had to rank all the properties, unfortunately, like Dust 2 DK and stuff probably quite low. Yeah, I mean, they've got way bigger properties than the Dust 2 sites, right?
I mean, I can tell you that. That is exactly what happened with us. So let me think. I think I was laid off on the 29th. Like we were told about our full-time positions being limited on the 29th. On the 27th, me and Ryan had a meeting to prepare for me to go to China for the major and the RMR. So within the span of 2 days, so on that Sunday, we're talking about we're planning to launch a new product, a new league product. Don't know what Mark can, say a new league product. We're planning on sending someone to Philadelphia 18. So we were getting their flights and tickets together for all of that. We were getting ready to send me to Asia, and we were planning like our prep content for that to sort of start building hype for, we're going to have our man on the ground in China for a month. On Monday, Ryan gets laid off. On Tuesday, the rest of us get laid off. So it's like the atmosphere can change very quickly, especially when you're not owned, when when your boss isn't the ultimate boss of the company.
Exactly.
Better Kind of stock tanked something like 30% the week before the layoffs hit. The company made a reaction, so the reaction sent ripples through the entire through their entire ecosystem. And that's something obviously completely out of our hands. We were doing pretty well, I would say, all things considered, for the size of the market we were targeting.
No, absolutely. No, it's where people don't realize, like, obviously, if you're not the biggest part of the business, as you say, something completely unrelated, like it's like stock market stuff, just means to get that number for the quarter to where the shareholders want, you sometimes have to just come in and, like, ridiculous triage, just basically say, cut to $100,000 out of the budget. So, unfortunately, I can tell you, this is why esports has had esports winters over and over again. When we, in the bigger picture of the world, at the bottom media property and some massive sponsor goes, cut $1 million, the first thing they do is cut all the esports shit, of course. That's just the way it works, unfortunately. That's why it's a bummer, though, because as Mnmzzz is pointing out, it's not that, like, they thought Dust 2 US wasn't doing good stories and they were like, close the project. It's actually, essentially, might have nothing to do. Exactly. And in fact, it seems like it has nothing to do with the website. It's just totally unrelated. It's essentially the health of the bigger company that owns them all. So that's also a bummer, unfortunately, if you want big properties in the space.
Yeah. Like, I feel like people are already misdirecting their dislike for Ryan and saying that's like
they try to do that whack thing where, like, they do it to me and you, where they're trying to be like, it's just because you suck that the site shut down. Like when they're like, it's because you did this tweet about Ziwu Maui that you're not hired to the major. It's that shit. They try to do that angle. Because by the way, that can't even be true. Because as I just said, he broke one of the biggest stories of the year, like fucking 2 months ago or something. Like, was it like a month and a half?
Well, we had shit on the subreddit where it was like, oh yeah, sorry, all those guys are losing their job, but at least Ryan's also losing his job. And it's like, what the fuck? Like,
that is pretty harsh.
Like, he's still he's annoying on Twitter, so I hope his entire life is ruined.
That is wild
It's kind
as
of
a
like
take, I know.
it's a bit
Sure.
extreme, isn't it? Like,
Sure.
oh, I don't like your Twitter content, so I hope your family like dies in a fire. Like, that's not reasonable at all.
Right. Anyway, Maui, what is your ugly point?
Yeah, mine is just kind of these wild card invites that are going to be taking place in the upcoming year.
What is the premise? Give the explanation in case someone didn't read the news post. What's the premise for this?
Okay, so basically, okay, I'll read the Valve ruling has changed a handful of times, and so it's actually been difficult to keep up with where it was and what it is. All right, I can tell you what it is now, and I can already see the flaws in what this is, but I feel like a cynical angle is going to be coming very, very likely through this. So I'm just giving a forewarning here, but there was at the tier 1 tournaments for the upcoming 2025 year, you're supposed to invite teams that are via the Valve rankings, just standings in order.
Yep.
Like if you're going to do an 8-team tournament and you're doing a tier 1 event, you just invite the 1 through 8 ranked teams, which is cool. And I feel like if you're a TO, there's probably no better time than now to actually just host a tournament, because you can guarantee it's better than the partner system. You're just going to get the 8 best teams as of the time of the invites. But you can also invoke the wildcard invites. And so I'll try to paraphrase here to make it more interesting, I guess. Like it says, when you have these wildcard invites where any tournament which has 8 or more rosters can then invite 2 more rosters with wildcard invites. And then for every 8 on top of that, if you have 16, then you can add 2 more wildcard invites. And it feels like a sort of cynical angle where the wildcard invites themselves can be due to a qualifier, but wildcard invites can also simply just be, you can just flat out invite a team if it has 3 players who were part of a team that at one point was a top 8 roster during the preceding 12 months. 12 months. Like, that's an insanely long time for what is now becoming such a short term for invites. Like, you can basically, the invites for a tournament have to be a few weeks prior. I again, like, they've changed these timings a few times. So, but basically, like, if you're inviting people down the Valve rankings, it's like, I think at max like a couple months, and that's why people were kind of up in arms about this before. Like, you have to invite people through the Valve rankings, but it was of such a short period of time that it was actually going to be difficult for people to secure visas to certain countries in those time frames. But now you can do these wildcard invites for any core that was top 8 of the preceding 12 months. And I already can just see this coming, like, where there's going to be some TO that cynically tries to get into the space, and then they just invite like a core that, like, there's already been these Bet Boom events which have a conflict of interest baked into them because they're inviting Bet Boom to their own tournament. And now you can be a TO that runs an event and invites a core 3 which were part of any top 8 roster. And so I think people are going to start to basically, where I'm going with this is that back in the day, the version of this was this: to secure your legend spot for the major, if you made it to the playoffs, you would just keep these cores, which is like why we had some weird wonky cores like Flusha and Automatic and Zelsis playing at a major together. And now for the preceding 12 months, let's say like FaZe all fall apart or whatever, they could still get invited, the three of those guys. If like Kerrigan retires or something like that, like Pseudo retires, if Rain kind of falls off the team, if Rops just drives his portion to the sunset, they can still actually play a tournament 12 months from now in a top tournament, in what was supposed to be an incredibly competitive circuit. We might still get a couple rosters here and there that are just by no means supposed to be there. And I feel like the other part about this wildcard stuff, and I can't find the ruling now because the ruling changed 2 days ago, but it did also have an impact that was like, you could invite the highest ranked team of a region. And actually now when I'm looking through this rule book, which has just changed 2 days ago, I can't find this ruling
well,
anymore.
I know
Wait,
exactly what they changed
okay.
it so that for a tier 2 event.
Yeah.
Oh, so like let's say I wanted to host an event that was just like an American LAN. It was tier 2. What it used to is actually I think it's a good change. Like this one change I think is generally a good change. So let's say like I wanted to host a LAN in North America, like $50,000 prize pool, but it like an iBuyPower Masters kind of event almost, but with just domestic teams.
Yeah.
Previously, before I'd have to start with the ninth best team in North America. I wouldn't be allowed to invite 1 through 8. I'd have to start at number 9, which means that, like, say for example, if you were an M80, you wouldn't be able to go to this LAN, which would suck for them because it's supposed to be like an American's LAN with a decent prize pool. And the reason I believe they introduced this change is imagine you're in a situation like like I think M&E is perfect for this example. Imagine you're too low ranked to go to a global tournament, but you're too
Yes.
high ranked to play in a domestic tournament. That's what this new change fixes, is that the top NA teams are able to play the top NA events, even if they're not high ranked enough to go to the top global events. But I think your like main point is there's just a lot of ambiguity and like weirdly written rules and weird issues of compliance and like for example, like is Blast following the letter of the law or the spirit of the law? And the VRS feels like it's overall going to be, at least in short term, is going to be a good thing to try for the scene, but there's just a lot of issues with how it's written right now and like what the implications of it are. And for example, like you said, if a team like wins an event, let's say like in November of last year or in October of last year, VP won a Rubek Cup, like won the Rubek Cup, which would probably count as a tier 1 event due to its prize pool and teams. That means,
Yeah,
today you could invite, like today, a year later, VP definitely isn't like a top 8 team anymore. You could just choose to invite like the core of that team to an event out of nowhere because maybe I'm like a 1x bet, maybe it's like a 1x bet sponsored tournament or like a sponsored, a big sponsor like IM or something, and they say, "Hey, IM, can you wildcard invite like our sponsored team?" I know they're not ranked high enough, but they did win that event a year ago, so it's technically legal.
I will say, yeah, go on.
Yeah. I mean, no, I think you got it. Like there's a few things. I just think that this is a work in progress. And I guess it's going to be fixed overall, which is why it's ugly, because it's not just flat out bad. Like you said, there's been rule changes that have seemingly helped where these tournaments are going to go. But I still feel like the rulings right now just need to be ironed out more concretely, because I mean, also I just think that anything that takes into account an invite that's for performances 12 months ago in the CS space, we don't, like, 12 months ago might as well be an eternity. Like they're completely different teams and players at that point. Like people's form is just completely different. And like you said, yes, the winning of a tier 1 tournament in that time span is just like, you could practically invite, like, it just, yeah, okay, actually Thorin, just take it. Like this point has gone in so many directions, because like I saw that the rules changed actually 2 days ago, and then it also kind of threw out what I thought was a point in it, but I can't find it anymore.
Maybe perhaps you could argue something like, let's say like MOUZ Sports, for example, they won Pro League about 12 months ago. Imagine if this rule was in place now, you could argue something like, actually this would still work. So MOUZ Sports won ESL Pro League Season 18 in October 1st, 2023. If you were let's say this was 2024. This is a bit of a labored analogy, but bear with me. If those those players leave and go to another organization, then you could do like a wildcard invite of that team. If maybe like, say for example, Faye secured like Shui, Shui and Yimfat, and maybe they had like Brolin is like a sub, and then change him out after they got the invite. That could be something that could potentially happen as well, I'm presuming. Right. A bit of a labor.
The main topic, the main point on this topic for me, I only have one real. I agree that it should be ugly, and here's why. Because I actually don't hate the concept. Like, if people don't know, this is why I even suspect, Maui, that the 12 months thing is like where someone's tried to like translate a sports rule to an esports space, and they've forgotten that our time like doesn't really work the same way. Because basically, the most famous sport that I know that uses wildcards is tennis, right? And the reason why you do it in tennis typically is because in tennis they run on like a rolling 1-year ranking schedule, which is just literally your last 52 weeks. So the premise for the wild card in tennis for something like Wimbledon, in fact, famously in 2001, the Croatian player Goran Ivanisevic did actually win Wimbledon as a wild card, but that's exactly why they invented the wild card, because the point is he used to be one of the best players. Now, what had happened was he'd had like a year and a half or 2 years where he'd been really bad. So the point of the wild card is either one, invite a popular player, because then the fan gets to see like at least 1 or 2 matches of just another popular player. Whereas in that analogy, like you're not going to, like the 120 129th player in the world isn't going to be more of a draw than a former great player. Or the other angle for tennis was, because you run this ranking cycle, what if someone got injured for a year and a half? What if they had like a really bad Achilles tear or something and they came back? So you all know they're a dope player and they're going to be a top player again, but they don't have a ranking because they don't have the space to get into it. The point is, in that scenario, again, you'd rather gamble that the guy coming back from injury who used to be the number one player is really good than give it to the 128th or 129th player, because they're not going to do it at the tournament. They're not a fundamentally good player. Now, the problem with that is, for sports, that's brilliant. For esports, I think what you've already nailed, Maui, is the way you apply it is everything. If you do this badly, it fucks the whole thing up. If you do it right, it could be great. Like an obvious angle, by the way, that could be awesome, is if you have, in the future, say a year from now, you have a downturn for teams like FaZe, NAVI, G2, incredibly popular teams, you would, as the event who lives and dies off eyeballs, you want that team there no matter what. Even if they're like the 14th best team now, you want them at that event. So even if your event's only bringing 8 teams, you want that team there because that will bring more eyeballs than the Mongols, even if the Mongols is number 5. That's just the reality. Now, I will say, here's where I left the name off there on purpose of a very popular team you'd also want to invite, because if I actually had to be cynical, Maui, I would say this entire rule sounds like an ESL exec sat up all night drinking Jolt energy drink / coffee going, how do I get it in a ranking system where you have to be a top team that I can always have Furia at the Brazilian event? How do I do it? Because everyone wants that viewership. Everyone wants Gowlers watching. Everyone wants all the Fallen fans watching. So this looks to me like you created a rule, because I know the old version, I'm not sure about this new version, I haven't checked this rule book, but I know the old version of the wildcard even included wording that did say something like that you could even have like historically significant players or rosters or something, which makes it sound like you're literally just saying you can just have Fallen's team. Like if you're in Brazil, you can have Fallen's team, which by the way, you've got to have. Like I said, it's actually essential to the current landscape, how you make your money in esports. So the obvious worry here is if you really were doing it to like crowbar a Fallen team in, I don't mind, like I say, if it's a legit one. Like it's like FaZe is just on a downturn, but they will bring the viewership and they'll be all right. I'm worried that you do it when they might actually suck. Like what if they really are the 30th best team, but you're crowbarring them in? It'll help the viewership, but it also might actually rob like a real team that could be decent. So I agree that it should be ugly. It's not bad. It's just if they apply it this way. Also, I agree with you. It sounds also like if you have the smaller events, it's a way you can crowbar your team in there, even if they maybe shouldn't arrive. So I just think if it's used cynically, it will spoil CS like everything, that we can't have nice things. If it's done properly, it could be a great addition. Right now, we do need eyeballs. We need the big names.
I mean, the upside could be something cool. Like, say, for example, we have a team, like, say, for example, we have, like, FaZe win the Shanghai Major, and then you have, like, an IEM scheduled for, like, August of next year, but maybe FaZe has, like, a downturn, like, Kerrigan retires, Rain retires, so the team, like, isn't quite there, or maybe Kerrigan takes over as the coach, so you want that team to have, like, a return to Shanghai, and, like, so you're gonna invite the runner up the major because, like, let's say like Navi has a fantastic season after that, so you're like, I need to get FaZe in this event so they can have the clash in Shanghai.
Yes.
So you wildcard invite FaZe, like that'd be sick. Like you could do like the thing E-League did where they reinvited VP and Astralis to have that rematch after the
the clash for cash. Yes, yeah.
And unfortunately, by that time VP was kind of like VP was kind of falling off a cliff, and Astralis was getting even better. So they kind of just shit canned VP and then took the money and ran. But if it could actually be like, it could actually be, you know, theoretically cool in a way. Where, but there are definitely like holes in it.
Oh, and by the way, the other angle as well. If it isn't an ESL exec set up, it was a Blast guy going, we've got to have Astralis for real in all the Blast. It's one of those two. Like, those are the two most obvious people that would have a cynical reason to want a specific team at a specific event. Because understandably, that's where all the local fans come from. We get it.
Fortunately, though, Furia right now are ranked number 10, so they can't be wildcard invited unless they get 2 positions higher. So the system works at the moment.
Okay.
Good, which is good.
Let's go to the last point. The last point then is my ugly point. And this is actually one that's going to be a wide open one. So everyone, as I'm talking, pull this up and you can just take your angle you want. So you might have seen that G2's CEO, the guy called Alban Deschalot, who, if people don't know, actually used to work for Riot Games and Coca-Cola, bizarrely, he did an interview which was translated. It was actually also translated in English by Nell, who's obviously a French insider. And in this interview, this motherfucker never got the message. Like, he really did. He also embraced that French thing where you just tell everything. You just say all the things, whether it's like expedient or not, whether it could cause problems or not. This guy dropped info where you would think he was like a 17-year-old brand new pro player. Like, if you don't know, I'll give you some gems. He said stuff like that, He basically just openly disrespected Nico, who currently fucking plays for him and will need if he wants to win the major. The actual headline on HLTV was, if we wanted to keep Nico, we could have done so. Now, I actually think that is mad wiling out. Like, one, that almost seems like a reprisal for, hey, Nico, remember last year where you almost fucked our whole roster and left, and then, like, as you were just out the door, you were like, but can I stay? That almost seems like a reprisal for that, because there's no upside to saying that. Like, you're going to think the upside is, no, you don't, here's what I think the CEO thinks. He thinks that people are going to think, oh shit, they know Nico's leaving for Falcons and MonteCristo might go with him. So what they're going to think is that G2's not a big org anymore and we're not the place to go. We're like the MOUZ, we're the ones that lose the players. We're ends. I think he's trying to battle that, but I think he's done it in a really stupid way. Because one, the last thing I would ever do if I still had Nico in mega form in my lineup going into a major where I'm a dark horse to win it is I would never say a single thing that could ever upset his mentality about my fucking team. Like, that's the thing you say once you know he's left. Then also, countering that, they tried to do the same thing, but the other direction with MonteCristo by going like, we also have him under contract for years and years. And, but what's funny about the MonteCristo one is he's really cagey how he phrases that. If you read the way it's phrased, it sounds simultaneously like he's saying maybe MonteCristo will leave, because he goes out of his way to point out like maybe he'll leave with Nico sort of. But then he also makes it, but maybe he'll stay and maybe we build around. It's like, bro, just fucking call him already. Just call him and say, please, I want you to stay, baby. Please don't leave me. Like, it's already, that one's weird, because that one almost seems like he is communicating with the player. And then the third one is he actually confirms Maui. I tell you what, bro, I miss occasionally, but I don't miss often. He actually confirms my conspiracy theory about Mnmzz's recruitment the entire time, which is they never brought Mnmzz in to be an awesome player with MonteCristo and Nico and then be the top team in the world. They brought him in knowing that when Nico leaves, because he was definitely leaving, this is the guy. That's why we made him stupid anchor spots now, because that's temporary. He's just going to be the new Nico, which, as we referenced earlier in this show, by the way, what insane pressure to put on the shoulders of a fucking player. Like, by the way, someone turning to you and going, well, go on then, be Nico. That's almost the most absurd premise you could say to anyone. That's like taking Ultimate now and going, you know what? You should just fuck around and be like fucking MonteCristo. It's like, I'd like to. How am I supposed to just choose to do that, bro? And by the way, Alban Deschlot, who I think comes from League because he's from fucking Riot. No, sir. Giving him the same spots as Nico won't make him Nico, you fucking buffoon. That's not the way this game works. So even though I actually do think, despite what Richard thinks, on CT side, you definitely did limit Mnmzz's game by giving him all those spots. Luckily, he will get his chance to flourish in the future. But I just think this interview is wild because, like I say, it really is like one of the traditional French scene leak interviews where they just give all the fucking juicy drama. Like, I genuinely am shocked. That's why I put it as my ugly point. It's not like what he said is wrong or not all of it is inappropriate. I just think it's really ugly because it's like both the CEO of the team talking about everyone in the team this way and basically talking out of school about all their business. Like, by the way, I'll just put this out there. Imagine MonteCristo, because he's left the door open there that clearly people want MonteCristo, and MonteCristo I've heard has many options, not just with Nico either, by the way. That's just like some fan, I ship them shit. I've heard like there might be a whole bunch of Russian teams he can go to. The weirdest thing about that is he's almost phrased it like I say, sort of like, well, you can come, you can go, do what you want, mate. Like, what? You're the CEO. What are you talking about, you mad cunt? Like, so anyway, I don't get it. What do you guys think of this? I put it as ugly because I just think it's weird. It's just weird to me.
I read the title of this interview where he's like, yeah, we could have kept Nico, and I'm like, oh, you could have, like, then why didn't
you? Yeah, go ahead then. I know.
It almost felt like, because I didn't even take into consideration the implied threat you had where they keep him in like a contract jail. I just thought it was like him trying to project an aura of strength, like, yeah, we're G2, we could have kept Nico, we could have paid him as much as Falcons, and then it's like, then you have to ask the question, like, why didn't you? Nico's clearly like the linchpin player on this roster. So you're saying you could have kept the roster going at the current trajectory, but you chose not to. And you have to ask, like, why? Do you have that much faith in, Mnmzz's MD to take over as the next star of the team? Are you trying to get a cheaper player to try? You're trying to do more with less. Why are you trying to do more with less? Is there money troubles at G2? And you're saying MonteCristo could also go? Are you also trying to pursue a buyout for him? Well, what's the future plan for that? It's like, are you most interested in team success or the team or the organization's financial success? And even then, it's just like, it's, to use a Zoomer term, it's like he's like sipping the copium because he knows he's gotten, he almost lost. It took all of his efforts to keep Nico last time. And he's like, yeah, we got to hold on to Nico and we can do it again, when he's clearly not, like, he's clearly going to Falcons. Like, there's nothing about it. There's nothing that suggests he's staying with G2. So to me, it just feels like out of touch and trying to put up an air of like strength and, you know, we're G2, we don't fuck around, when it's clearly like you're being fucked around right now and losing your best player because of money. It's like delusional, out of touch, and assuming the fans will. Most fans probably don't even know who you are, who Alban Deschamps is in G2. Like they probably still think Ocelot's in charge of the organization. Most casual fans probably still think Ocelot's in charge. So it's like you can't come and say, "Hi, I'm the G2 CEO. We're gonna keep Nico if we can." Wink, and like people are like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
It just reads like a salty dude, like that's fumbling the bag before our very eyes.
Why is he going Zuma speak now? He's like using every possible bingo card thing. Bro, you're just salty, like fumbling the bag. This is El Riz, and you're in the fucking skibbity toilet with the Yoros. Like, what are you talking? Okay,
he's got Ohio Riz, this Albin guy. No, he's
huffing the galaxy gas. Yeah,
I mean, in the quotes.
Technically, galaxy gas could be an acronym. G2. There you go, galaxy gas.
This guy's huffing it for
and sure. Whoever did recruit Snacks to be IGL and put MOUZ as anchor, definitely on the Galaxy Gas. Listen, maybe Taz was like, guys, we need to smoke all this shit to come up with this roster. Like, okay, then I guess. Well, whatever.
Bro,
listen.
I just Bialy, man. We could do it again.
Sure.
Make it happen a second time.
Oh, that would, by the way, low key, that would be the greatest meme of all time. If it's like, yeah, look, Nico has left, but welcome Bialy and Pasha. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that would be hilarious. Like, low key.
No, you've covered practically everything in the translation so far on HLTV here. So my one line that I have for this is, Richard was wrong. Richard was wrong. Roles do exist, and G2 even acknowledge it themselves. That MOUZ was supposed to be in those roles.
Oh, by the way, that's one thing I'll say could even be interpreted as positive. If they told Malb something like that when he joined, then I think it's a lot fairer than it seemed otherwise. Because my concern, if you remember when Malb's joined, was that you're actually just like kneecapping him. You're taking someone who got to play their main roles in M80, and then every fan's going to go, you're just not as good. It's like, he's not even playing the fucking same spot. So actually, by the way, if they at least gave him this like censor expert, that would be fairer. If he knew that sort of like, this is a trial period.
Did they know? Was it Orchid honest with the players by signing them? Or I mean, gun to your head, did they? Like,
by the way, isn't that also a weird thing about this? Is I've never heard from this guy in CS before. That's another weird thing. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't the guy that normally is out there like commenting on all the moves and stuff. You know, it's kind of a bit weird. Feels a bit out of character.
And he's been the CEO since January 2023. So it's been 2 years. I haven't heard a damn thing from him.
I say, as far as I knew, he came from the league side. And it obviously, also, by the way, some people even speculate that's why he got to be the CEO of G2, because obviously they fucked up in Valorant, didn't they, with the Ocelot shit? So they were like, what if we put a Riot guy into Ocelot spots? Quite a cynical way to fix that bridge, isn't it? So I don't know. I just thought it was a weird fucking post, mate. Especially, as you say, the one on Nico was so weird. Because I'll finish with this. Even the way he phrases this is so pathetic. It's so fucking whack. He goes, let's see. He said of the possibility of keeping Nico with the team. If we did, it's because we consider that this is a moment, perhaps an amount, perhaps a phase for this roster where it's the right decision. Why are you the Harlequinade playing fucking mind games? Why did I do this? Did I do it because of the amount of money? Did I do it because it's the right moment? Did I do it because of a phase I'm now in? What are you talking about, you mad fuck? You are literally the boss who could tell us that. And if you aren't going to tell us, why are you like, I've got a secret? Well, can you tell us what it is? No, but you can guess.
Isn't keeping Nico always the right decision?
I would assume so personally, but then again, what do I know, right? I know. Which is also weird, right? Because if what you were actually doing, by the way, Mnmzzz, was like a show of strength, what I would do is something like, okay, Nico's leaving and it's his time to leave, but don't worry, we've got like a straight fire player coming in, or, you know, the roster's going to be... Surely you'd do that. He almost makes it sound like, but please don't leave as well, MonteCristo. Not you, too.
We're gonna get a really sick anchor. Just you wait.
There you go. Okay.
It's like shocks. Like all right. You're like, all right.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for letting us know. Like,